Am I the jerk for still using the baby name I told my sister I was going to use, despite her using a variation of it first? I am a 35-year-old woman, and I had my first daughter in September. While I was pregnant, my sister, who is 38, was also pregnant with a boy. In reality, she was pregnant with twins, a boy and a girl, but thought it would be a fun surprise for everyone. During that time, I told her that I planned to name this baby after our mum, Colette, and my husband's mother, Coral. Both names start with Co, and I think Coco is an adorable nickname. She told me the name they picked was a surprise, and they didn't want to reveal it until the baby was here. Lo and behold, her twins are born in August. Everyone is super surprised that it's twins. She names them Cole and Letty. I didn't think much of it, except that it was really cute and sweet that she clearly named them after our mum. When my daughter was born, I followed through and named her Colette Coral. We almost exclusively call her Coco. My sister is very annoyed that I followed through with the name and brings it up all the time how ridiculous it is that three of them practically share a name. It's also confusing if full names are used, I will admit that. Despite me telling her my entire pregnancy this was the name I planned to use, I even had stuff made with the name. She, though, ensures everyone knows her babies were born first. Honestly, if she told me months ago that she planned to use Cole and Letty, I probably would have pivoted, but she never said anything. Heck, even if she told me she was using Cole, I would have reevaluated. I'm currently debating legally swapping Coral and Colette simply to keep the peace, but that feels an awful lot like admitting I'm the jerk in the first place. So, am I the jerk? No, you're definitely not. Again, it's very weird to be this possessive over a name. I understand from a logistical viewpoint, it is confusing. Having babies in the family that have very similar names or are even named after the same person. I don't personally think there's much wrong with that. I think Cole and Letty, yeah, they're similar to Colette, but they're different names. And also, if you're going to call your daughter Coco pretty much exclusively, especially when she's a child and doesn't really have choice over her name, to be fair, I think she will probably stick with Coco. Coco's a very cool nickname, and having that more serious name as Colette, if she wants to pivot to that later in life, is great. Is Coco that similar to Cole and Letty? No, so I think it's perfectly fine. But the point remains, it is just pretty ridiculous what your sister is doing, OP. Taking ownership over the name when you had no idea that she was going to do this, and you told her the entire time what you were going to do with your baby's name. I wanted to read this story because I've actually been talking to my sister about this, because we both really like the name Ava as a girl's name, and we're sort of like, in a humorous way, saying, well, whoever gets there first, whoever has a baby first, gets dibs on the name Ava. We both couldn't really call our children Ava. I mean, we could, but we just wouldn't, because it's a bit confusing and it's just not really necessary. There are millions of names out there that aren't Ava, which are also nice, I'm sure. But yeah, if my sister said to me, no, I'm dibsing Ava, doesn't matter when you're having your baby, Ava's mine, it would just be really weird. She obviously wouldn't do that. We're just doing it in a playful way, but this is strange. Yeah, obviously you're not the jerk, OP. Am I the jerk for not letting my mother-in-law see our new house until she apologizes? This has been building for about 4 or 5 months, so sorry if I miss anything. For context, my girlfriend and I have been dating for 13 years. My mother-in-law has always been very entitled. She's the type to argue with retail workers until they cry over a discount she thinks she deserves. If an idea isn't hers, she shuts it down. Her husband avoids conflict at all costs, so no one challenges her except my girlfriend's sister, and those usually turn into huge fights. A few months ago, my girlfriend and I decided to buy our first home. We talked about it for months and brought it up multiple times with her parents. When we finally found a house we loved and decided to put in an offer, we called them to share the news. Instead of being supportive, we were met with immediate hostility. It started with the usual questions like, are you sure you're ready? Which was fair. But after I explained the planning we'd done, her mum brought up a car that was repossessed from me 8 years ago and said, I bet you thought buying that car was a good idea too. Yeah, because that's fair. She then attacked my character and questioned how she could be okay with this since I don't tell her about my life. I'm not her child, and I'm not even very close with my own family. I don't think I owe my mother-in-law every detail of my past, especially after comments like that. Yeah, I'm not perfect, but my life is far more stable than it was 8 years ago. After that call, I asked for an apology. She refused. My girlfriend and her dad asked her multiple times over the next few weeks, and she still refused. Eventually, she said she'd only apologize if we went to dinner. I asked if we could do it over the phone so I could leave if things got nasty. I declined the dinner at first. Later, I agreed, and then she changed her mind and said it had been too long. During all of this, my girlfriend and I fought a lot. She is very close with her parents and usually sees them every weekend. From my side, that felt hurtful, but I didn't want to tell her to stop seeing her family. By this point, we'd moved into our house. I told my girlfriend her mum wasn't welcome in our home until she apologized. She didn't like it, but agreed. Last week, her mum got some bad medical news. Now my girlfriend says it's unfair that I won't let her mum see the house since she's sick and might never get the chance. From my perspective, all of this goes away if she simply apologizes. I feel I'm the only one being asked to bridge the gap and make concessions. So, am I the jerk? Okay, interesting one here. I started off, for the vast majority of this post, on OP's side because, yeah, I think that OP's mother-in-law should apologize because it's not a nice thing to say, really. Oh, you had your car repossessed 8 years ago. Are you sure you should be buying a house? Imagine being punished or people holding on to things from your life 8 years ago. And to be fair, this does make me think about my episode from the other day where we were discussing the man who wanted to apologize to his son for kicking him out when he was 16 for being gay. And there are a lot of comments on that video. You guys, well, the majority of you were not on board with what I was saying. And I think you are right. In retrospect, it's all about the son in that story. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go back a few videos on the channel. Very, very interesting story that you guys seem to really enjoy. So yeah, you shouldn't be punished for something that you did 8 years ago that, to be honest, isn't even relevant at all. However, as this story progressed, I think OP is the jerk here, because you have to set aside the fact that you really want an apology, which, by the way, again, you do deserve, and be the bigger person. Your girlfriend is not happy with this at all. Like, she loves her parents, obviously wants them to come round to the house. It should stop at that. You gotta sort of swallow your pride and be like, okay, I want her to apologize, but my girlfriend's not happy. Obviously, her parents can come round to the house no matter what. And then on top of that, her mum is now sick, and you're still saying no, she has to apologize. That is just petty and unnecessary. And it's going to be affecting your relationship with your girlfriend. I mean, you've said you're fighting a lot, and it's going to be making her feel terrible. Like, I don't really care what these people have done, what, your mother-in-law to be has done. You've got to let them come round to your house if your girlfriend wants them to come round to your house. You just have to do it. Like, you don't have to be there necessarily. You can go elsewhere. You don't have to talk to them much. You don't have to have much of a relationship with them. But yeah, to say, no, your sick mum cannot come round to our house, not knowing how long she may have left, you are definitely the jerk there. You have to reassess this and not hold on to this grudge. I mean, people in the comments down below are questioning the timing of the bad medical news and whether this is manipulative from the mum. I would not go to that extent. I think that is definitely jumping to conclusions. And yeah, the point is, these two issues are separate. You have the apology, which you deserve, but you also have the fact that your girlfriend's mum is ill and wants to see the house, and your girlfriend wants her parents to see the house. Separate the two issues. Be the bigger man. Am I the jerk for not quieting down at a Renaissance fair and walking away after my boyfriend sided with a stranger? I, a 23-year-old woman, went to a Renaissance fair with my boyfriend, who is 26, and my sister. My sister and I go to events like this regularly, but it was my boyfriend's first time. At these events, people dress up, interact with performers, and cheer loudly during shows. I was acting how I normally do, engaging with the environment and cheering during performances. During a joust, I was cheering along with the crowd. Nothing inappropriate, just typical cheering. A man sitting in front of me turned around and said I was scaring his child and asked me to stop. Before I could respond, my boyfriend told me I should quiet down a little. That upset me, especially since the event itself encourages loud crowd participation. Another person nearby even commented that the man was out of line. I felt embarrassed and unsupported, so I got up and I walked away to calm down. My sister came with me. We'd already planned to split up after the joust, so I didn't think it was a big deal to take some space. A few hours later, my boyfriend found us and was upset, saying I had abandoned him at an unfamiliar event. He also said that if a child is scared, people should adjust their behaviour, regardless of the setting. I disagreed, and I felt like I shouldn't have to change normal behaviour in that kind of environment. Completely agree with that, by the way. It's so environment specific. We ended up arguing, and it escalated more than it should have. Also added, before the joust, we had a detailed plan of separating for an hour-ish afterwards. We each wanted to do different things happening at the same time, so we planned to part ways and meet back up at the place I wanted to go since it was a group activity. My sister and I did separate for a time, and she came back and joined me at the location we talked about. I figured my boyfriend would do the same, which is why I was more than okay with walking away from the situation. Also, before the joust even started, the kid was side-eyeing my sister and I, a look we're very familiar with as African Americans when children clearly aren't exposed to other people. After the dad told me to quiet down, other people around me pulled me aside and said he had no right to do so. All I was yelling was, "That's my wife!" cheering for the female knight, and the man was there with his husband, so that comment really shouldn't be an issue to him. So, am I the jerk for not quieting down and for walking away? Okay, so the walking away thing, you're obviously not the jerk there at all. Like, you'd sort of plan to do that, and if your boyfriend is like, "Oh, you left me alone at a place I'm not comfortable with," like, just grow up. I get it, it's probably a bit uncomfortable for some people, but you know, like, if you're getting annoyed about that, then, I mean, what's going to happen when there's actual hardship in your relationship or your life? Like, that is just so fine. Just deal with it. Walk around, enjoy, or leave, or just, like, call her or something. It's not that hard. The next bit is, should you have quietened down for this kid? And the answer is absolutely not. I mean, yeah, be respectful of people around you, but this is like an interactive thing where people are encouraged to participate, you know, crowd participation, shouting, etc. You can imagine a joust, like, you want the atmosphere. I don't exactly know what a Renaissance fair is, but I imagine it's like well, it's pretty obvious, I suppose. It's like, yeah, celebrating that period in time and what used to happen back in the day in that era. And it sounds really fun, to be honest. So the real question is, should this kid have come if they were going to be upset by the loud noise? And the answer is probably not. Now, I remember going to, this is a little bit far-fetched, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'm a Chelsea fan, Chelsea Football Club, and I remember going to a football game when I was young with my sister and my parents. Actually, I think it was just my mum who took me and my sister. And obviously at football games in the UK, across the world, people get angry, people swear a lot, etc. And I remember there were these two nice guys that were sat behind us, who you could tell would normally want to swear and get a bit angry and enjoy themselves because, you know, it's part of the game. And they were being very respectful and, like, sort of having some fun with my mum and being like, okay, well, we're not going to swear because there are young kids here. And they were using, like, frickin' instead of the F word and stuff like that. They were being funny and respectful. Now, they didn't have to do that, but I still remember that to this day. And the fact that they were doing that and being nice is, like, cool. So in a way, I do think that you do have to be respectful of who's around you, no matter what event you're at. They didn't have to do that, but you know what I mean. It was nice that they did that. So I don't think, you know, if you were really being loud and upsetting this kid and you were being over the top, I don't think that is necessarily right, but it doesn't sound like that at all. And it sounds like you were perfectly in line with what you'd expect to be doing at this event. And the dad just got annoyed because his child was crying rather than you being the one that was being obnoxiously loud or whatever. And the fact that everyone else around you was like, that was completely out of order, proves that point. So you're definitely not the jerk here. I do think that, yeah, respecting everyone around you is a good thing to do. But, you know, in the same way, if you took your kid to an F1 race and, you know, people were cheering for their favorite cars, their favorite drivers, etc., like, you couldn't then be like, oh, can you just quieten down a bit? Can the cars be a little bit quieter because my child's getting a little bit upset? So yeah, the scenario where you are is important, and clearly the dad was out of line here. you're not the jerk. And now for our final post. Am I the jerk for leaving my friend at a restaurant after she tested me? So, I, a 23-year-old woman, have a close friend, a 24-year-old woman, who we'll call Stella, who has this really annoying habit of doing little things to test our friendship. Right now, just like off the bat, after reading one sentence, I want to say that is extremely weird. I'm already going to probably say that you're not the jerk here, because what a weird thing to do. So strange. Anyway, she'll say stuff like, I just wanted to see if you'd notice I was upset, or I wanted to see if you would drop what you were doing to help me. This really annoys me, and I've told her before that I would really love it if she stopped doing that and just talked to me openly if something was bothering her. Last weekend, we went out to dinner with 2 friends. At the end, we asked for separate checks. When it came to me, I noticed they had charged me one of Stella's drinks. She had already paid, so I decided not to say anything then because I didn't want to complicate everything for the staff. I figured I'd just bring it up later. After dinner, while we were saying goodbye, I quickly mentioned to Stella that one of her drinks had been charged to my bill and that I thought she'd overlooked it. I said it really nicely and pretty offhandedly. However, after I told her that, Stella suddenly got really cold and just said, "Oh, I'm a really awkward person and I don't know how to handle people when they're being rude or standoffish, so I kind of let it slide." Later that night, she texted me saying she felt I'd been acting selfishly and that she didn't feel appreciated in our friendship despite her doing so much for me. She said she had noticed the drink wasn't charged to her and waited to see whether I would offer to cover it since she had helped me move into my apartment 2 months ago. I understand wanting to be appreciated, but I was honestly really annoyed. I don't think it's healthy to help your friends and expect something in return. That feels really transactional. I told her that if she wanted me to buy her a drink as a thank you for helping me move, it would have been better to say so 2 months ago. Instead, this turned something small into some arbitrary test of friendship. She replied that it shouldn't have to fall on her to keep reminding me to show basic appreciation. We decided to meet for brunch the next day to talk it out in person. I got there first and I ordered a coffee. However, before I could even really say anything, she immediately started telling me how she hoped I'd thought more about my actions. At that point, I just couldn't do it anymore. I was so frustrated that any attempt at having a productive conversation turned into me somehow being the villain. I just stood up, paid for my coffee, and I left. I texted her afterwards saying that I was done participating in her little tests and that I can't be friends with someone who isn't willing to communicate like an adult. I just don't know how I can make her understand that she needs to stop testing people quite literally. OP added this as a little edit as well, saying, "I'm actually someone who hesitates to ask people for help because I hate inconveniencing others. So I didn't ask her to help me move. She volunteered to do it herself. And even then, it wasn't anything too crazy like big furniture, just boxes I needed to transport over from my storage unit, which I was originally planning on doing by myself anyway. And yeah, of course, I bought takeout for us after because I still would have felt really trashy taking advantage of someone even if they offered to help. Now I'm thinking maybe to her it felt like something I would have done anyway on a random hangout and didn't necessarily feel like an explicit thanks, which I verbally said, of course. I don't know, but overall I feel like the whole situation was literally nothing significant to begin with, so I have no idea how we got here." Yeah, well said, and that makes complete sense to me. Again, you're definitely not the jerk here at all. I could tell from the first sentence, as I said, this person is just weird. I wouldn't be friends with someone that was like this. Like, a friendship isn't transactional. I get it. If you buy a drink for your friend, it's nice if they buy you one back. But it shouldn't be something that sort of sticks in your mind like, oh, I bought that person a drink or I helped them move out 2 months ago, therefore they owe me something. That's just like not a good thing to hold on to. So yeah, these little tests sound awful. Imagine being with someone and not knowing whether they're testing you or not and sort of being on edge because of that. I would not want to be friends with somebody like that, so no doubt about it, you are not the jerk here, OP. My daughter is suspended from school for 2 weeks and school will only let her back if she gets unnecessary therapy. Please help. This was originally posted back in September of 2019. My daughter is 6 and just started first grade. The school brought in a wildlife instructor to show them some animals. My daughter hates snakes, and that was one of the animals they brought. The instructor told her to touch the snake. She said no. The teacher also told her to touch the snake. She said no again. Both the instructor and the teacher began pressuring her to touch the snake and told her they wouldn't move on until she did. She started crying and ran out into the hallway. She stayed in the hall right outside the door. This is the story from the teacher, FYI, so I know my daughter isn't lying or exaggerating. I got called into school, and the principal said that running out of class without permission is an automatic 2-week suspension. When I heard the story, I asked why they didn't just let her not touch the snake. It seems to me that she had a fairly expected reaction for a 6-year-old in that situation. They said they were doing exposure therapy and were working to make sure she got over her irrational fears. I asked if there was any way they could change the suspension since I can't afford unexpected childcare for 2 weeks. They said that they would waive it if I could show proof of getting her therapy for her fear of snakes. Frankly, I can't afford therapy, and even if I could, there are many things that my daughter could make better use of than therapy for a fear of snakes when we live in a city and rarely encounter snakes. I am furious with the school and also at a loss. Can the school put her through exposure therapy without my permission? Would a lawyer help me get her back into school? Are there any legal remedies here? Please help. Is this real? I can't quite believe that. By the way, this was originally posted onto r/legal advice, and I think it is genuinely real. That's insane. I mean, I remember being at school and you'd have wildlife people come in and you had the opportunity to handle snakes, touch tarantulas, etc. But nobody was ever forced into doing that. And a fear of a snake is not an irrational fear. It's a very real fear. Now, you guys that have been around on the channel for a long time will know that I had a snake, Marty, a corn snake, who lived to be 18, 19 years old. So I don't have a fear of snakes. However, if I saw a snake in the wild, then I would be very, very cautious because they could potentially kill me, and I don't know about that sort of stuff. So how is that irrational? Very, very strange and very traumatic for a 6-year-old. Right, crazy. Let's get into the comments and see what people on legal advice suggested for OP to do. Right, somebody said, escalate it up the chain. If they still ignore you, inform them that you will file a complaint with the State Department of Education due to the principal's statement that they were, quote, doing exposure therapy and your daughter's fear of snakes was irrational. This should freak them out because, 1, you're reporting them to the state, which will involve an investigation that they may not want. And 2, none of the people involved in the incident are licensed mental health professionals, and the teacher was practicing outside the scope of her license. That will land her in hot water with the state. OP replied, actually the teacher was a man. I don't believe for a second they were actually trying to do exposure therapy, by the way. I think they pushed her too hard and then made up something to justify it. It was just supposed to be a fun, educational class visit. Well, then leave it at that. And then don't suspend her for running out the class when obviously she's going to want to get out of there. And then somebody else said, since they made the claim that they were doing exposure therapy, that leaves them open to the potential consequences of their actions. In trying to justify them, they have dug themselves a very deep hole. They would have been better off admitting they screwed up. And finally, somebody said, so I am a mental health professional and do mental health assessment for schools. I have never done anything like this before. It seems way over the top. Most of my cases are neglect, abuse, drug use, defiant behaviors, major learning disorders, etc. Would the school accept a second opinion? OP said, I don't know. They said I need proof she's in therapy, and that was the only option they presented other than the suspension. That is utterly ridiculous. I mean, surely you'd have to escalate that, or definitely get some lawyers involved, because that's not a thing. You don't have to go to therapy for a fear of snakes. That's not in the law. Absolutely insane. I'll be suing. Anyway, 3 weeks later, we got this update, and I really hope it's positive. Hi everyone, thanks for your responses to my last post. After I read everything, I called and emailed the superintendent describing what had happened. I got a call back almost immediately, and after I explained the situation, the superintendent told me that she had to call the principal. But there was no way my daughter was suspended for 2 weeks. I got a call about an hour later letting me know that my daughter could come back to school the next day, but would be placed in a different class. I received apologies from the district and from the principal himself, though I figure that's probably not a genuine apology, but whatever. Thanks for your help. Okay, again, I still kind of feel weird about this one. Why is she going into a different class? It's really, really strange. It's obviously loads of effort and probably not something you want to do, but I would strongly consider removing your daughter from this school. It just seems really, really weird, and they're obviously not willing to own up to their mistakes. I don't know how comfortable I'd feel with my child being in an institution like that. Very, very strange. I'd also love to be a fly on the wall in the conversation between the principal and the superintendent. But yeah, I guess well done for getting the police involved. But it's just odd. What a weird situation this is. I really wonder where this happens as well, but we don't know. At least your daughter's back in school, I guess. Anyway, that's the first story done. Very, very odd. Let's get into the second. My boyfriend called me a gold digger, so I left. Now he wants my help to pay the rent. This was originally posted back in December of 2024 to r/true off my chest. Quick rant, not looking for advice, but for people who have been in similar situations. I, a 30-year-old woman, had been with my boyfriend, who is 34, for 2 years. We moved in together 6 months ago, and it was all good. We had an understanding that we'd go 50-50 on chores and bills until we decided to have a child. As I'd be putting my body, career, and life on the line, he would obviously need to make up for his lack of risk by contributing more around the house and monetarily. Because of this, I believed we had an understanding on how we believed partnership should work. 2 months ago, he got a slight promotion and pay bump, which meant we adjusted our cut of the bills to reflect that. But somehow, he's come to expect me to then take up the chores at home. It started with small things that I knew he could do, like dishes and laundry, and escalated to sitting down all weekend, watching me do my half and leaving his half of the chores to accumulate. He blamed it on the stress and added workload, but we're both corporate and work at our desks regardless. I'd be more understanding if his job was more physically demanding. It got to a breaking point when I noticed mold in the pots he was meant to clean. If either of us cooks, it's the other's responsibility to clean. He just kept the lid on it so that I wouldn't notice. I needed to take a day off work to catch up with all the cleaning he neglected. The last straw was when he came home without groceries, despite it being his week. Usually, when either of us is too tired to do groceries, we let the other know in advance so we can at least order in food. I told him we need to add a cleaner to the bills if he's not happy doing chores anymore, because I refuse to do them if he isn't contributing fairly too. He made an excuse about not wanting a stranger in our flat. I then said we'd need to begin ordering groceries delivered for the extra cost too, if he can no longer be bothered, and he called me frivolous with money. So I suggested that I'd be happy to take up these responsibilities, but it would mean I'd drop my working days from 5 to 4, and I would expect to be compensated for the sacrifice I'm taking to my own career so he can focus on his responsibilities, because apparently they matter more than my own. And I'd also expect to be paid an hourly rate for doing the chores at the average market salary for a housekeeper. It's strong, but it's fair. And I will say personally, I think that having a cleaner is like a really good investment in, first of all, your time, and also like just the cleanliness of your house, because a cleaner does a better job than I could do cleaning my house, and it's really not that expensive. So I think like get a cleaner anyway if you can afford it. But on top of that, yeah, this all seems very fair. He seemed so surprised and shocked I'd suggest that, and didn't know how to reply, despite having an answer for everything I said before. I started to feel like he was trying to manipulate me into a situation that was more ideal to him and less ideal to me. And if he loved me, he wouldn't be doing that. So I asked him if his friends put him up to do this, because I knew they all struggled to keep girlfriends, and he said, quote, "A proper woman would be happy to look after the house," and then called me a gold digger. I was shocked because I wasn't asking for designer items. I was asking for fair compensation for my labor, especially seeing as it would dent my own career to take on all this work. So I called him a gold digger for wanting a private chef and housekeeper for free. I was admittedly angry at this point, and I also told him to stop being so proud of his promotion if he was too broke to afford a chef and cleaner, and instead tries to manipulate the women he loves to do it for free. Not really for free, because taking a day off from my salary means I'll be paying for the privilege to clean up after him out of pocket. I told him he was dragging me down when we were supposedly meant to build each other up equitably. The flat is his, so when he was ignoring me after the fight, I started packing. He told me I would see sense, but I didn't bother. I started to feel embarrassed that I didn't notice he was like this and wasted 2 years to build up to this letdown. As I packed my car, I said as much, and I told him not to contact me. I blocked him everywhere, and he's now sending our mutual friends messages and voice notes to forward to me. My friends have been mostly on my side, seeing him as a bit pitiful. And I can see that. One of the male friends we have in common mentioned that he's been watching podcasts recently about masculinity, and I have a feeling this is where he got the idea to stall my future and put me under his foot to only serve his dreams and goals. I feel angry the more I think about it. He loved those podcast men's ideas more than he loved me, and now he expects me to feel sorry that he can't afford the rent without my contribution. But I believe he still thinks I'm the gold digger for not accepting an unfair division of effort and labour. If this has happened to any other women, how did you address it? I'm annoyed I let it trickle and accumulate for 2 months before addressing. Moving forward, I won't enter a relationship without having this outlined at the dating stage. I'm in my 30s now, and I don't want to deal with men expecting free women labour because society makes them believe it's worthless in comparison to what they do. Damning words, and very, very fair, of course. Alright, someone has said, this is a common trend in recent times. I had the same issue with my ex-boyfriend of 2 years. He told me my responsibilities as a woman were cooking, housework, childcare, and paying half the bills. His responsibilities were paying the other half of the bills, being in charge, and making all financial decisions. I earn a lot more than him. It turns out that at the age of 32, he became a massive Tate stan. Like you, I didn't know he'd been consuming the content obsessively. One of the last things he said to me when we were breaking up was, all a woman is good for is keeping my stomach full and balls empty. Okay, you're lucky you left when you did, and I'm impressed with how quickly you did it. I tolerated the misogynistic trash for months before finally waking up. Wow, I mean, that's bad. OP replied, I'm glad to hear he's an ex. I did in the moment think I was being too rushed in my response, but my gut feeling was telling me he was not going to hear my opinion, let alone change his ways, if he didn't respect me enough to even do what he did in the first place. I'm so shocked by the comments and how common this podcast pipeline was. He listened completely in secret. I was not aware in the slightest. There must be shame attached on some level to hide it, because we shared all the entertainment we consumed, and even his football. I'd sit down with him sometimes for important matches. I think you're probably right, there is shame, but I know a lot of people love this like manosphere stuff, and I presume a lot of you guys have watched that documentary on Netflix, Louis Theroux's one, and it is pretty eye-opening. I mean, I watched it with my girlfriend, and she didn't know any of the people in it, and she was like quite surprised that I knew pretty much all the people in it. Now, I don't listen to a lot of their stuff, any of their stuff, but I do see it like on my timeline and stuff. It's very hard to ignore. I think maybe it's my sort of algorithm, like the football stuff, the sort of stuff I'm into, maybe lends itself to that in a way. I don't 100% know. I'm not trying to make excuses, but yeah, it's very, very prevalent, and I know it's a big issue. And I'm not surprised that some people find it entertaining and are convinced to start acting like that and listen to what those people are saying and actually take it seriously, which is terrible. But again, I'm not surprised. Someone else asked OP, what messages is he sending you besides about rent? Is he trying to get you back? Well, mainly apologies and explanations for what he said. The last message I read was about his plans for his career and how he wanted to become a high earner so I never need to work and he can buy me everything. Me and my friends agree he is digging a hole as he still ignores my career and goals. And after accusing me of being a gold digger, his plan is to make me a gold digger? I'm not sure. I think he's just in crisis mode now. Yeah, that's the exact opposite of clearly what you're asking for the entire time. Like, ridiculous. OP actually added more later on about the messages because, as you probably noticed, and I did as well, she didn't actually say much about the messages and him even saying, can you help with rent money, etc. But she adds, he basically just mentioned that because I left without giving him time to adjust his budget, I should pay for the next month of rent. But he lived there before, so I know he can afford it if he becomes frugal. My name wasn't on the lease, and when I mentioned I wanted to be on it, in my country having a paper trail of rent agreements makes it easy to rent when you move, a void isn't great. He told me not to worry, so I guess he kind of saved me from that in his own way. And then finally somebody said, congratulations, you dodged a big bullet. His issues will be bigger and bigger. Especially now he financially effed himself over by calling the breadwinner a gold digger, and now begging that same woman he pooped on as soon as she moved in to be his sugar mama to fund the roof over his head while she still no longer lives there. OP more than dodged a big bullet, she dodged nukes. Plural. Nothing funnier than men calling women gold diggers when they got no gold to dig. Yeah, true. Okay, quick edit from OP before we get into the update, which came 6 months later. You're going to want to stay tuned for that because the title of that is very, very interesting. But first of all, they said this. I wanted to explain a few points that came up a lot. 1, he created an Excel spreadsheet that calculated based on income how we can fairly contribute. When his pay increased, he paid more monthly and also had 400 euros extra monthly disposable income. He paid 80 euros extra monthly. If this is what soured him, I suppose he should have mentioned because it was his system, not mine. It also is very fair. 2, we did not keep a tally. We had favourite chores. He likes to vacuum. I like to put dishes away. Sometimes he's sick, does overtime, or isn't in the mood. I'd happily do it. Same with him for me. I only started to tally when a pattern emerged. It would be stupid to not take notice when he's constantly leaving things to me silently, as if expecting me to silently sort it out. The mould was disgusting. The groceries were just the straw that broke the camel's back. I was exhausted after only 2 months of picking up the slack mentally and physically. I couldn't imagine doing it without serious reconsiderations to our dynamic. 3, we discussed children because we both agreed we wanted the relationship to head in that direction, not because we were ready now. I would not have spent 2 years with a man if our future ideas didn't align. It's okay if someone changes their mind later, but communication is important. And 4, he listened to these podcasts in secret. I had no idea. And yeah, we usually share the entertainment we consume together, silly videos and films. Well, these podcasts are definitely silly videos. I can assure you of that. Okay, now let's get into the update. And as I said, the title of this is not good. My ex is making me nervous. I want to leave the country. This was 6 months later, June the 16th, 2025. Just 4 days after my 27th birthday, can you believe? I posted on this sub a few months ago about my relationship with my ex falling apart due to his change in ideology and seeing me less like a partner and more like someone who only exists to support his dreams. I do wonder as well on this, how often is this happening? I mean, this is just one example right here that someone's posted openly on the internet. I do wonder if with all this manosphere stuff, this is just happening across the world, especially the Western world. And there are loads of women having to deal with this. You know, it probably is the case. It's pretty horrible to think about, but yeah, just came to me. Anyway, the breakup was quick. I walked out after a major fight with most of my items, and my father went back to collect the rest while I was on FaceTime. I wasn't scared of him then, but I knew he'd try to talk to me as he was bothering all our mutual friends to get in contact with me on his behalf. Since then, I've slowly drifted away from our mutual friends, as no one has cut contact with him. And I just wanted friends who didn't feel like they were walking on eggshells around me. He started off being very apologetic in his messages to me, through them, but quickly became mean and blamed me for everything. He lost the flat because he could no longer afford it and moved to a studio. While he was heartbroken, his sister would look after him and clean sometimes, but even she got tired of it. He told everyone he was depressed because of me, so they all tiptoed around him. But once I started to drift off and hang out more with my hometown friends and reconnect, I heard less and less. About a month ago, I got asked on a date, and I said yes. The man, let's say Martin, is completely new to this area and knew barely anyone. So we spent a lot of time together in the first week, just me showing him around and being more like friends before seriously dating. Somehow, my ex found out. I'm still not sure how, but I think a mutual friend saw me and reported back. He turned up at my father's house, he doesn't know where I currently live, asking to talk to me. I called a mutual friend to alert them of his weird behaviour. It seemed to work because he didn't try anything for a while. But then, one called me to tell me that they found my ex had lost his job because for the past few weeks, he'd been driving around my town all day instead of working in the hopes to spot me. That's terrifying. This has scared me, as I didn't think he was capable of that. But if you read my last post, you'd know I don't seem to be able to predict these things well. Oh gosh. Now Martin is a tall, large man, the new man that OP is dating, so I go out with him almost everywhere since we like spending time together anyways. And I also have my friends and my father, so I don't feel like I'm in imminent danger, But this behavior sounds like the kind of behavior from an entitled and delusional man. And we all know how far their delusions of entitlement can take them. For him to lose the job he wanted me to prioritize over mine, and the entire start of our argument last time, it doesn't sit right with me. At this point, the police here can't do anything as he hasn't acted, and I can't prove that he stalked me electronically. So the only way for me to find out more or resolve this is by unblocking him. I'm grateful I blocked him so thoroughly because it allowed me to have a clean break. But obviously in his red pill mind, that's not normal. Will closure help him? Martin has suggested that he'd even pretend to be a fully dedicated boyfriend to help discourage my ex from any ideas of reconciliation. Honestly, since our breakup, I've been considering moving to Portugal, but very whimsically. Now this situation has made me think about it seriously. I write because last time your comments gave me comfort and lots of insight and confidence. Oh, there we go. Very scary stuff. I mean, what would you do in the comments down below? I don't think unblocking this man and having any contact with him is a good idea at all. You don't really want to give him even a breadcrumb, but I completely get it from OP's perspective. She's terrified. Imagine having to leave your house and you don't want to go out alone in fear of your safety, and you have to go out with your father, friends, Martin. What an awful situation to be in. I think you just have to, I don't know. I was going to say, just keep going to the police, try and give them as much evidence as you can. But I don't know what they're going to do about it at this early stage. I mean, if any of you watched that other show on Netflix, Baby Reindeer, then you'll know that there was a limit to what the police sort of did before things got actually serious. You can stalk without it being fully illegal for such a long length of time. And, there's loads of stories about famous people or just people in general who have had stalkers for years and police have done nothing. So, again, get in the comments down below. What do you think OP should do? But you can't just leave the country because of one person. That's awful. So yeah, very tough to know what to do. I'm interested to see your comments down below, that's for sure. Today I effed up by accidentally learning my co-worker's salary. And now I can't stop doing math during meetings. This was originally posted on April the 10th, 2026. This happened 2 weeks ago, and it's been eating me alive. I work in an open office. My co-worker, Greg, sits directly across from me. Our monitors face each other. I've never once looked at his screen on purpose. I want to make that clear because what happened was entirely an accident and also entirely his fault. Greg got up to go to the bathroom and left his screen unlocked. Normal. People do this. I don't care. But he left a PDF open and it was zoomed to 400%. I don't know why anyone would zoom a PDF to 400%, but Greg did. And because of that, I could read it from 4 feet away without even trying. It was his offer letter from when he was hired with his salary in 48-point font, basically. He makes $31,000 more than me. We have the same title, same team. He started 8 months after me. I trained him. I trained the man who makes $31,000 more than me. I showed him how to use our project management tool. I walked him through the client onboarding process. I sat with him for 2 hours explaining our filing system, which honestly even I don't fully understand, but I pretended I did because I was his mentor. And he makes $31,000 more than me. I cannot stop doing math now. Every meeting we're in together, I'm calculating. Okay, this meeting is 1 hour. He's making X per hour. I'm making Y. The difference between us sitting in the same meeting, listening to the same person talk about Q3 projections is $14.90. I'm losing $14.90 of relative value every hour I sit next to Greg. I've started a spreadsheet. I know, this is unhinged. The spreadsheet has columns. The worst part is Greg is good at his job. He's not some failure coasting on nepotism. He's competent, he's pleasant, he brings in those little stroopwafel cookies for the office on Fridays. He's never done a single thing wrong to me. This man is my friend. I went to his birthday dinner last month. I bought him a gift with my lesser salary. I looked up his job posting from when he was hired. It listed the salary range. The range started at what I make and went up to what he makes. So technically we're both in range. I'm just at the bottom and he's at the top. Same range, same title, different ends. Like 2 people on the same bus, except he's in first class and I'm sitting on the wheel. I know I should negotiate. I know I should talk to my manager. I know the mature thing to do is advocate for myself. But instead, I've been silently tracking the cumulative salary gap between me and Greg in a Google sheet that I have named Greg Data, and I've password protected it, even though nobody would ever want to look at it. We're at $6,100 since I found out. 14 working days. I'll stop tracking it when I get a raise or when I lose my mind. And honestly, at this point, it's a coin flip. Greg just offered me a stroopwafel. I took it. It was delicious. That makes it worse somehow. Now, I'm sure that some of you can relate to this, knowing that you do the same work as somebody else, or at the very least, you are working harder or doing better than your boss at a job, but earning significantly less money. This is tough though, when it's someone that's come in after you and does the same thing that you do and they're earning that much more. That is very brutal. It's probably good, I would suggest, that OP has found this out. And I do think that one big issue in the workplace is everyone not knowing what everyone earns. Yes, that makes sense, but it also means that people don't really get what they're worth a lot of the time. If people are on different salaries within the same team doing the same job, that's not really fair, and it's probably keeping everyone down at a certain level. If everyone knew, they'd be like, well, we need to be getting the same, right? We need to be getting whatever the top person is getting. So it makes sense from the company's perspective, but 31k is huge. Let's jump into some comments before getting into the first update and seeing what OP did. Someone said, talk to your manager or look at switching company for an equivalent jump. Also, assuming 250 working days per year, 14 working days would be a 1.7k difference between your salaries, not 6.1k. So I checked the maths in your spreadsheet. I was thinking 14 working days for 6.1k does not sound like a 31k difference. OP replied, now I know why I'm paid in the bottom range. Tough. Someone else said, Greg actually did you a solid. He's trying to let you know you're underpaid without telling you directly. Oh, that's interesting. Commenter 3 has also said 100% he knows, and he is trying without speaking to let you know. Who else would leave their pay stub on their screen, zoomed in 400%, knowing full well you can see his monitor? That's a very good point. I hadn't even thought of that. Also, yeah, why would he be looking at that? Like, he's been in the job for a while now, right? Why has he got his pay stub in, and why is it 400% zoomed in to his pay? As you said, you two are friends, and your friend is telling you to nut up and go to management for more money. Obsessing over details like the spreadsheet is only going to start the seed of resentment towards your friend, the same friend telling you to go for a raise. You are too caught up in the dollar sign and feeling slighted to actually see the message. He probably agonized over this and likely feels worse. A closed mouth doesn't get fed. Now, go get that raise. Only question on this is, how does Greg know what you're getting, OP? Because if you don't know what Greg's getting, how does he know what you're getting? Or maybe he can sort of infer that you're getting less than him or significantly less than him. He doesn't think that's right, and he's trying to let you know, which he has successfully done. And then the final comment, kids, this is why we are talking our salary with our co-workers. Not talking about it only benefits the employers, exactly what I was saying. Now get your butt up and demand a raise. Yeah, all very fair. Right, let's get into the update then, which came April the 15th. By the way, I'm recording this on April the 24th, so this is a very current story, just 5 days after the original post. People wanted an update, so here it is. It's a short one because honestly, I'm still processing. Firstly, the maths. A lot of you pointed out that a 31k annual gap over 14 working days is not 6.1k, it's about 1.7. I had a formula error in the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet I built specifically to track numbers. Greg Data has been corrected. I left the old column in there labeled wrong because I think I deserve to look at it every time I open the file. Someone commented, this is why Greg makes more than you. And yeah, that's fair. Now, many of you are convinced that Greg left his offer letter open on purpose, that nobody zooms a PDF to 400% by accident. I kept telling myself, no, that's crazy. That's a conspiracy theory about a man who brings cookies to work on Fridays. And then Monday happened. Monday, I'm at my desk. Greg walks over and puts a coffee down in front of me. Not near me, in front of me, like a delivery. And then he goes, hey, so you doing anything about the pay thing? Wow, so it was on purpose. Crazy. I need you to understand something. I've never said a single word to Greg about his salary. Not one. I did not tell him I saw the offer letter. I did not tell him about the spreadsheet. I've told no one at work about any of this. And this man walks up to me on a Monday morning with a coffee and says the pay thing, like we've been having this conversation for weeks. I said, "What pay thing?" And he looked at me for a second, like he was waiting for my brain to catch up with the rest of reality. And then he said, "Never mind," and walked away. Never mind. He said never mind, like he'd asked me if I wanted lunch, and I said no. I've been thinking about that never mind every single day since. I added a tab in Greg Data called Evidence. I'm not going to say what's in it because if I'm wrong about all of this, I will need to move to another state. What is in that? Oh my goodness. I also need to mention Ting Ting. Ting Ting sits 2 rows over and leaves at exactly 5 every day. Not around 5, at 5. If there was a fire alarm at 4:59, Ting Ting would evacuate and then not come back at 5 because her day is over. She is the most reliable person I've ever met, and I say that with complete sincerity. She becomes relevant later. Wednesday morning, I get to my desk and there's a stroopwafel sitting on it. One stroopwafel on a napkin. No notes. Now, Greg does the stroopwafel thing on Fridays for the whole office. This was a Wednesday. This was just for me. I sat there looking at it for a while, and then I opened Greg Data and I added a new column. The column is called Day of Week. The first entry says Wednesday. I highlighted it in yellow because it felt important. I don't know what it means yet, but I'm watching. Greg, if you're reading this, I'm onto you, I think. I don't really understand what OP is getting at there at all. Hopefully the comments will let me know because, again, like, is this guy not just trying to help you? That's what it seems to me. Let me know in the comments at this stage. Don't cheat. Comment down below right now and timestamp it if you want so I know. Do you think Greg is just like... Greg is definitely helping. It's obvious. What is OP inferring? Do you think he's just going crazy? Do you think he's like going too far into this? And the stuff about, you know, despite the fact that Greg is his friend and is trying to help him, just that he can't get over the fact that he's getting paid this much more than him and he doesn't like it. Very, very strange so far. Anyway, as I said, let's get into the comments. Someone said, "So, you're going to do anything about the pay thing?" Very well worked. Actually, yeah, OP said. "I have a meeting with my manager tomorrow. We'll see how that goes." And commenter 2 said, "Ting Ting did in fact not become relevant later. What's the relevance for Ting Ting? I must know." Also, that never mind was definitely Greg realizing he gave you too much credit. Poor Greg. OP said, "Oh, Ting Ting is relevant, trust me. I'm just not ready to talk about that part yet. Maybe in the next update." And just like that, 1 week later, April 22nd, just a couple of days ago, at the time of recording, we got the final update for now. I talked to my manager after all of your encouraging comments. Also, Ting Ting is in this one, I promise. A few of you said bring documentation, so I brought the job posting from when Greg got hired. I rehearsed in the car and then again in the elevator. I walked into my manager Paisley's office and the first thing out of my mouth was, "I think I'm underpaid." Like I was confessing to a crime. Technically a conversation starter, but not the energy I was going for. Paisley did the slow nod. You know the one. Then she said, "I appreciate you bringing this to me. Let's make sure we're aligned on your growth trajectory." I've been hearing the phrase growth trajectory for years. I don't know what it means. I've never been on a trajectory. I've been on a salary. I nodded like I understood. Surely you know what growth trajectory means, right? Okay, I know it's a bit of corporate jargon, but still, you should know what that means. Anyway, I pointed out I'm sitting at the bottom of the range and the role is identical to Greg's. She said, compensation is based on experience, market conditions, and budget at time of hire, which means Greg got hired when there was money and I got hired when there wasn't. I've been financially penalized for showing up first. Cool. She said she'd look into it and circle back. Now, circle back is horrific corporate jargon that I hate. And when I hear that phrase, I always think I'm so lucky to not work in the corporate world because that is disgusting. Anyway, that was last week. She has circled somewhere, not back. I left her office and Greg was in the break room. And I don't know what happened, but I walked straight in and said, "Why did you leave your PDF like that?" I didn't rehearse that part. I'm not sure where it came from. He looked at me for a long time. Then he started laughing. And then he said, "Ting Ting told me to." Ting Ting? Ting Ting, the 5 PM woman, the person I mentioned one time in my last post and then completely forgot to bring up again. She told Greg to leave it open. I said, what? And Greg said, she noticed you were spiraling. She said, show him the numbers and he'll figure it out. I stood there for a while after that. My brain was trying to build a new tab for this information and running out of columns. How much does Ting Ting make? I said. More than me, Greg said. A lot more. She's been here longer than both of us. She knows. She knows! I went back to my desk and sat there staring at Greg data, the evidence tab, the day of week column, all of it. Weeks of tracking one man, and the whole time Ting Ting was running the show. I opened a new column out of habit and then I closed it. I don't know why I did that. I'm not healed. And then it's 5 p.m. Ting Ting walks past my desk. She walks past my desk every single day. She has never once looked at me. Today, she looked at me. 1 second, direct, then she was gone. I sat there for a while after that. I spent weeks building a spreadsheet about a guy who was trying to help me. Meanwhile, the quietest person in the office set the whole thing up, and I didn't even notice because she leaves at 5 and I thought that was her whole personality. It's not her whole personality. I don't know what her whole personality is. I don't think I've earned that yet. Greg stuck his head over the partition and said, "You good?" I said, "Ting Ting is the most powerful person in this office." He said, "I know." I renamed the evidence tab. It says, Ting Ting was here. I think that's the right name. I don't know what Paisley is going to come back with on Friday, but I know Ting Ting is a legend, and I owe both of them a lot more than a spreadsheet. My goodness me, what a post. That honestly read more like a novel than a Reddit post. But wow, I mean, how good was that? So much to unpack there. First of all, I've got to say, and I mentioned it in the intro, but I obviously didn't read the whole thing, as I never do. But I could tell from briefly scanning through and looking at a couple of comments, the way OP dealt with this was very, very strange. Almost like, and this is what the top comment says, he's handling this like he's a serial killer, which is not too far away. Like, he's so weirdly analytical and going crazy. Someone else said, I could be easily convinced that OP is having a manic episode because this sounds like disordered thinking. Now, I don't think it is, but it's just crazy. I've got to say, it's so well written as well. That was like beautiful to read. Every time I read a post that is as eloquent and well written as that, it's a genuine joy. So to OP, thank you. That was excellent. But yeah, very, very strange. Again, get in the comments as always. What do you think about this story? Very fun story. What would you do if you found out that your colleague who does the same job as you is earning 31k more? And actually, it's the quiet girl who leaves at 5 p.m. that's earning way more than both of you and has told your colleague to tell you that you're not earning enough money. How does she know? Well, she knows. She knows everything. Am I the jerk for lying to my partner about having kids and laughing about it? So, I recently became engaged to my partner. I am a 34-year-old woman and he is a 35-year-old man. We met on a dating app 3 years ago and hit it off from the start. 5 years ago, I got my fallopian tubes removed. I've known I don't want to give birth since I was 15 years old, and I've never changed my mind. I always said that if a child came into my life, I'd love it, but I'm not actively seeking that out. On my dating profile, it explicitly states child-free and infertile, verbatim. At the beginning of our relationship, my now fiancé regularly referenced other things I put in my profile, so I'd assumed he'd read that part, and kids never really came up in other convos. Well, last night he mentioned that I should consider stopping my birth control, since now we're engaged, and given our ages, we should start trying for kids. I honestly thought he was joking, and laughed. He got frustrated and asked me why I thought it was funny, and I reminded him that the second line of my dating profile said I was ostensibly infertile. He was shocked, and he called me a liar. I happen to remember that I sent a screenshot of my dating profile to a friend for review around that time. And I pulled up the old convo with her to show him the time and date, and that it indeed stated that I was child-free. I told him I'd had my tubes taken out, so there was no chance of me getting pregnant without outside help. IVF is technically still an option, but I don't want to put my body through that. He stormed out, and his mum called me crying that I have ruined his life. His sister sent me a long message about how getting my tubes removed should be illegal, and how I'm a monster for stringing my fiancé along. To be honest, his family never really like me because they think I'm beneath him. A cousin told me it's because I'm fat. True, but I'm also pretty active. Regular walks with my dog, hiking, biking, swimming, paddleboarding, and a little snowshoeing, none of which my fiancé does with me. And a career woman in a male-dominated field. Plus, we share the household labour 50-50, and I make more money than he does. Because of this, I don't take what they say too seriously. But I'm starting to feel bad. His family believe I stole years of his life and ruined his future chances of being a father by lying about my fertility status. He asked for space when he stormed out, so I haven't reached out to him. I do love him, but I'm starting to have serious second thoughts given his family's reactions. I realise now that we should have talked about this before, but am I the jerk for how I handled the situation? Wow. I'm just baffled and bemused that it has got to this stage. That your husband-to-be seriously has actually said, okay, well, are you going to stop birth control now because I want to have kids? And he doesn't know that you've had your fallopian tubes removed. Like, even if it was on your profile, which clearly it was, I don't get how you haven't talked about it. Maybe you, OP, thought it's just not even worth talking about for 1 second because it's obvious that your tubes have been removed and, you know, you are infertile. And then maybe you presume that because your fiance hadn't brought it up, that he knew that. But from his perspective, like, how could you wait until you were engaged to say, oh yeah, maybe you should stop your birth control now because we want to have kids, right? Like, how does that not come up earlier? That's what's strange to me. I don't particularly think anyone's the jerk here. It's just like the lack of communication over these last years, 3 years, and not once has it properly come up where you can't hide. Not that anyone would hide the situation, but like, I don't understand it. How have we got to this stage? It makes no sense. As for the family comments, sure. I don't really think it's that relevant though. Like, yeah, they've got involved when they shouldn't have done, but I don't know. I wouldn't have second thoughts given his family's reactions on this one topic. Like, just leave that alone. Obviously, it is a big factor, but I wouldn't, break up with somebody just because of their family's reaction to this. I think, it's about him more than his family, although, of course, it is important. Again, I just don't understand how we've got to this stage where he hasn't realised, or you haven't told him, even though you sort of had. But I'm not sure that, like, going back and showing a screenshot of your dating profile from 3 years ago is actually enough. Like, you should have said again, and he should have asked again. This is on both of you, I think. It's very weird. Right, anyway, let's get into the update. This was the next day. So, my fiance came home this morning, and I asked him if he wanted to talk. He said there was nothing left to talk about. I asked if he wanted the ring back, and he got angry. I've never seen him like this, and I tried to speak calmly to him, but he was just yelling about how I was giving up and wouldn't even talk to him. I reminded him that I'd asked if he wanted to talk, and he said no, to which he responded that he didn't think I'd go all crazy over a disagreement. This was a huge wake-up call for me. I asked him why he'd never brought up kids beforehand, and he said because he knew I would get all weird about it. I tried to get him to clarify, but he just kept saying he couldn't talk to me when I was like this. I swear, I never raised my voice, and I tried to speak calmly the entire time. I told him I can't have kids, nor do I want any. I don't want to give birth. That seems like a deal breaker for him and his family. He said his family had nothing to do with this, and I asked why he told them then. He said because he was hoping they'd talk sense into me. I told him I was ending the relationship and staying with my dad for the time being. This didn't go over well. I'm still kind of shaking. As I was leaving, I asked him how long he's wanted kids, and he admitted he never thought about it, but he knew I didn't want any. But now that we were engaged, it wasn't just about me. He had a say in children. Okay, that is ridiculous from him. I told him I physically could not get pregnant without IVF, and I asked him how he expected that to work. He responded that I didn't know what I was talking about. I left after that because I just didn't have the energy to try and convince him, and I didn't want to further agitate him. Okay, so maybe he did know then, but was either just like not willing to accept the truth, or doesn't and didn't and doesn't fully understand how that worked. I'm removing a little bit of blame from OP, although I still do feel like she should have made it explicitly clear at times. I don't know, maybe I'm being a little bit too harsh. But I don't like, it's the conversation you have to have with your partner. Surely multiple, maybe not. I don't know. It's just, again, weird how this wasn't like nipped in the bud immediately. When I told my dad everything, he was furious. Apparently, when my fiance spoke to him about proposing, he did not ask permission. Both my dad and I are opposed to that tradition, just basically letting my dad know his plans. My dad asked him if he was okay never having kids, as I'd had my tubes removed. My dad says he specifically brought up my surgery and the impossibility of natural pregnancy. My fiance told my dad that it would always be my decision. Again, sort of a weird thing for the dad to say, because that's implying that your fiance OP didn't realize this. Maybe he's just like making 100% sure that he knows. But again, I feel like you should have made 100% sure that he knew a long time ago. Although again, maybe I'm giving him too much credit and actually he just doesn't understand at all. It's just weird. I don't know if you guys can understand that or you're getting what I'm saying, because I've said it a lot. But it's strange, it really is. I'm thankful this happened before we started any of the wedding planning, but it feels like I swallowed a boulder. I know I need to be more adamant in the future about my stance on kids, and I promise I will have these discussions with future partners openly and from the start. Yeah, that's good. I blocked his family from messaging me after they added me to a group message and started throwing Bible verses at me, saying that I'm a defective woman for not wanting kids. Okay. I don't have the energy right now to be petty, so I just blocked them. My dad's going to help me move my stuff over the next couple of days. I need to talk to the landlord and figure out the lease. I'm financially stable enough to pay most of the fees, I think, but I doubt my now ex-fiancé can afford the rent on his own. The only text I've received from him just said, "You'll regret this." I don't believe this is meant as a threat, but I'm being cautious just in case. Thank you all for the feedback. It was helpful to understand where I went wrong. This was my first long-term relationship, and I effed up a lot of the communication, but I know it's not just on me. I tend to be the kind of person that doesn't like to rehash things if I feel like we're on the same page, but with huge decisions like this, reiterating is necessary, and people are allowed to change their minds, which means rehashing is necessary in a healthy relationship. Well summed up. That is a very, very good paragraph. I completely agree with all of it. Yeah. I do apologize if I've come across as like bashing OP on this a bit. I do think, as she has admitted there, that she should have been more communicative about this and not just assume that her husband-to-be knew the situation. However, I do think the fault does mainly lie on her now ex-fiance for sure. Like, I think about it from my point of view as someone who has always wanted kids. I would know because I would ask very quickly if somebody wasn't able to have children. And it's not something I forget or be like, well, maybe they can in the future. And also, like, if they were lying to me, that would be on them, but OP has never lied or withheld information, it seems. Anyway, there is actually one more update to this, a brand new update that came 2.5 years later at the start of 2026. Hi, so I completely forgot about this account until recently, and I figured I'd give an update since the story got both crazier and then a bit anticlimactic, and a few people have asked. I'm going to give some fake names so it's easier. Josh is my ex-fiancé, his sister will be Jill. Moving out was pretty easy. Josh wasn't around, but I did find a few of my things in odd places that I suspect was intentional to make me leave them behind. It was quiet for about a week, but then I got called into an impromptu work meeting. My company is fairly small, and I'm in the upper level of the admin team, so it's not totally uncommon to get meetings with the two owners, a married couple. When I logged on, it turned out to be a coaching convo to address my use of company resources for personal matters. Apparently, Jill, Josh's sister, had found the company phone number and had been calling the number, attempting to get through to me or my supervisor. But the third-party company we used to manage that phone number didn't have my contact, or even really know who I was, because my position isn't client-facing. I'm usually pretty good under pressure, but I really didn't want to lose my job, so I ended up crying and spilling the whole story to my bosses. It turns out they're both intentionally child-free as well, and they were incredibly supportive. One of them is retired Navy, and he asked multiple times if he should pay them a personal visit, but his wife just rolled her eyes and told him that would be Plan X after all the others failed. Long story short, I ended up finding an attorney who helped me navigate a protective order. Jill didn't handle this well, and she tried to sue me for damages with Josh and their mum. It took a year to actually make it to court, and to no one's surprise, the suit was dismissed. The judge was very displeased by the waste of court resources. I was granted a restraining order for Josh, Jill, and their mum after I presented the evidence of harassment, as well as a notarized statement from my company. We also had recordings from the company phone calls, but the judge didn't need them apparently. I blocked all of them, and I've got no idea what's happening with them now, but they've thankfully left me alone. My dad was really happy to have me as a roommate. I think he's been lonely, so I've just stayed with him and split his bills. My dog has always loved my dad, so she's in heaven. I haven't really been dating, but I've been taking mixed martial arts classes recently, and I just finished a year of ice skating classes. Wow, those two things, I don't know if they should be in the same sentence. It's like, I've not been dating, but I've been doing MMA. I mean, that's pretty cool, I respect it. I'm enjoying having some more free time and perfectly content being single right now. I know now that there were a lot of things I let slide about Josh and his family that should have been deal breakers, and I think I would have figured it out sooner rather than later, but I'm still trying to relearn to trust myself. Until then, I'm not in any hurry to date anyone new. Thank you to everyone who commented and offered perspective, it really helped. My best friend and her husband had a fun time going through them all with me. And there we go. I will say as well, I probably glossed over Josh's reaction or his family's reaction to this whole thing, saying it wasn't that important. You know, I do think that what Josh did is more important than what his family did, but his family getting involved like that, it is more important than I said earlier on. Like, that is bad, and for them to just like hurl abuse at you is a terrible thing. So yeah, that is a good enough reason to break up with him. But I do think obviously that the person you're with comes first, but it's a pretty good insight into their life, I suppose, and the future as well, if their family is going to do stuff like that at this stage. I'm just going through the comments here, and the people are saying, and I do agree with this, that Josh is just dumb because he didn't realize that you can't regrow fallopian tubes, for example, which I think is very, very fair. I don't quite know how it got to the stage it got to where Josh thought that, did he think you were taking birth? Like, that's what, again, like, did he think you were taking birth control? Because he said, stop taking it, or let's consider stopping taking it. How can you, like, I do have to, like, slightly, unless OP has told him, well, no, because she would have told, I don't know. Surely you would know that your girlfriend is or isn't taking birth control. Did he think, because like, you wouldn't have been using protection either, would you? Like, so he would have just presumed you were taking birth control this entire time, although he'd never have seen you take it. I mean, maybe you were taking it anyway for other reasons, and that could be an option. But I've come to the conclusion, I think, that Josh is just dumb. Simple as that. Okay, with that first story now out of the way, I'd love to hear your comments on that one, by the way. Let's move on to the second. I'm hoping it's going to involve some characters that are less dumb than Josh. My brother tried to pull a fast one on his wife, and she did an Uno reverse, and I am laughing watching him scramble. My brother, Dan, and his wife, Anna, have been having some serious marital problems, which is 99% Dan's fault. Anna is a stay-at-home mum. She goes to college online and has a side business with an MLM. But whatever, she's made some new friends and seems to be happier. Before they had kids, Dan and Anna had a solid marriage. Anna told me after the kids came, their marriage slowly went downhill and now it's on life support. Anna does everything for the kids, and Dan wants a medal for watching the kids for 30 minutes while Anna cooks dinner. He's more than capable of taking care of them, but he chooses to let Anna do everything if he can get away with it. The MLM Anna is involved with is having a big convention this week. We are locals, but Anna decided to do a staycation and is staying at a hotel near the convention with her friends. This has been planned for months. Anna told Dan to take time off work and made it very clear she needed the break, and this would be a really good opportunity to network. Over Christmas, she asked him if he got approved for the time off, and he said, yeah. I told her, he's going to mess this up for you, and she told me he better not. She called me in tears. Dan texted her that an emergency came up at work and he would not be able to take the time off. He had to put in a long day on Tuesday and would be flying out on Wednesday. He was so sorry and he'd make it up to her. I thought she was going to have a breakdown. She could barely talk. I told her to calm down and finish packing and pick her kids up from school. I said I would watch them until Dan got home. She didn't want me in the middle. But I told her, screw Dan. We've never been close. I don't give a dang how he reacts. I watched the kids until Dan strolled in at 10 p.m. and I told him he was a selfish piece of trash on my way out the door. He blasted my phone and I put him on Do Not Disturb. I talked with Anna yesterday and he blasted her phone as well. She ended up telling him they could either get marriage counselling or see divorce lawyers, his choice, but he better stop calling her unless it was an emergency with the kids or she was calling to talk to them. He called his jets after being told that. He stopped by my house and I spoke to him through the Ring camera and he asked me what he was supposed to do with his kids. I asked him if he even bothered to request a time off from work and he wouldn't answer me and said he had an important business trip. He said Anna won't give the contact info for their babysitters and asked me if I could watch the kids. I told him, get the F off my property with his BS. If he were any kind of parent, he would already have the contact info for the babysitter. Anna prepped the meals for the kids, organised all their clothes for the week, and left a detailed itinerary of their schedule. What else does he need? Our parents and his in-laws won't return his calls. He's flying solo this week and had to cancel his alleged business trip. Anna says she'll get to the bottom of that when she gets back home. I hope she has the best time with her friends. I hope Dan doesn't get a moment of peace. No one is buying his lies or coming to his rescue, and I laugh when I think about it. Good luck, bro. Wow. That's crazy. What a horrible person Dan is, because you know he never asked for that time off. And yeah, even if he has an important business meeting, it doesn't matter, because by saying you're going on that and you can't look after the kids, you're just saying to Anna that what I'm doing is more important than what you're doing, which is disgraceful. Now, there is an update to come on this one, which was posted just a week or so ago at the time of recording. But first of all, let's get into some comments. Somebody asked, how old are the kids? In their fight, the kids will be impacted. Dan will not feed them. He needs to learn this, but not with the children getting messed up in between. The kids are 4 and 6 apparently. They will be fed, and he's very capable of taking care of them, and he will take good care of them. Anna is in close contact. The issue is he tried to sabotage her staycation because he is selfish. Exactly. Someone else added, I think he wasn't just trying to sabotage. It sounds like he had some side action planned as well. Really? OP said, I believe he's very capable of that. That is a whole other can of worms that Anna has chosen not to currently pursue. If he was planning some side action, it won't be happening this week. Goodness me. I'd advise Anna to consult a divorce lawyer regardless, someone else said. I see this stunt being the final straw, OP replied. At least Anna knows she's got support, and OP is an absolute boss for being an awesome bestie. I'll be getting their favourite snacks or candies every week for several months as a thank you for covering. Holy heck, Dan is an incompetent D. I'm sorry, did he forget he's the dad to these kids, not just the sperm donor? He thinks because he's the breadwinner, that means his work is done. Our dad is nothing like that. I told Anna to keep me posted, and I will keep you guys posted, and that's the update we're about to get into. Last comment. She'll get better behaviour from him as an ex-husband, with the courts mandating his parental effort under pain of contempt. There's no way he requested that time off, and I'd love to see what a judge would do with that sort of BS during proceedings. Yeah, I don't believe for a second he requested the time off, OP replied. As crazy as it sounds, he would probably be a more involved father if they got a divorce, which is a mental thing to say, but it might just be right. If you are legally required to do something, for Dan, it sounds like he'd be more likely to do it than he is right now. Okay, let's get into the update then. I'm going to start with the good news first. Anna is going to divorce Dan. Thanks to a family member, she was able to get an appointment with a lawyer this week. She comes very highly recommended. When Anna came home on Sunday night, Dan was waiting with a suitcase and said it was his turn to take a vacation, and he left. No arguing, he just left. What? In his warped mind, his silence is meant to punish Anna, but he's just making her life easier. While he's gone, she's going to be making copies of all the financial documents she can find. She hopes he really teaches her a lesson and stays gone. The house was a wreck. She moved all of Dan's stuff from the master bedroom into his office. All his stuff is laying on the floor. You can't even walk in there. There's not even room for a twin air mattress. The kids enjoyed their time with Dan. That's important. They were asking for him today and want to spend time with him. Anna called him and he did answer and spoke with the kids and told them he was on a business trip. She's going to file for joint custody. If he doesn't want 50% custody, then he will have to turn it down on the record. She also found out last Tuesday when he was supposed to be watching the kids, he was tagged in a picture at a bar playing pool. So much for working. He didn't even untag himself, which shows he really doesn't give an F. He doesn't love Anna or even like her, but he must hate her to act like that. I don't get it. He absolutely disgusts me. That is all I have to update. Okay, there we go. I mean, the only real conclusion I can draw from this is that Dan is just a horrible man. There's nothing else to it. That's it. Fair enough to Anna for even saying that she's going to go for joint custody, because I wouldn't want a man like that anywhere near my kids. I mean, it sounds as well, which is weird, that he actually might be an okay father when he's around his kids. But in his mind, he thinks that just earning the money is enough. I don't get it. Like, his kids seem to like him. I mean, yeah, the kids at that age are always going to like their dad, I presume, but it's just weird. Why does he have no responsibility? It's strange. And I do agree. I feel like if you do get that divorce, he will have to be more active in his kids' lives, which is probably a good thing for everyone. My boyfriend told me he used to ask out fat girls for fun. Am I right to be disgusted by him? My boyfriend is 25 and I am a 22-year-old woman, have been dating for a year. He's a very tall, attractive guy. He was on the hockey team in university, and his team was kind of like a bunch of frat dudes. But he never seemed like that kind of guy. He was always very kind and sensitive with me. He also seems to be a very respectful and caring person. He's in medical school right now. Some of his buddies from his former team came over yesterday, and they were just talking and hanging out. They start talking about their old shenanigans in uni. My boyfriend said, "Remember that time I broke the record for our chunky chick challenge?" I asked what the chunky chick challenge was, and he said the goal was to ask out as many fat girls as you can in a week. Everyone would put money in the prize pool, and the winner would get the entire prize at the end of the week. Basically, he asked out like 50 fat girls over text or in person, secretly recording the conversation, and ghosted them on the date. I was shocked, and I said that was so mean and gross. My boyfriend said the challenge was just a joke, for fun, etc. He accused me of overreacting. But am I though? No, obviously you're not. However, we are going to get to the comments and an update on this one as well. I mean, this is just a pretty disgusting thing. The fact that he still doesn't even understand that what he's done is so bad, even like years later. I mean, it's one thing doing it at the time. Maybe you sort of get, I mean, it's still disgusting, but maybe you sort of get swept up in the uni thing and like being part of a team. And then you're like, oh, that was actually a horrible thing to do. But he still thinks it was a challenge and it was funny and it was like a prank, even now. Wow. I mean, to be clear, I would never do this thing anyway, because it's just horrible. So I'm not excusing doing it in the first place. It's just the fact that he still hasn't realized what he's done is bad means that you shouldn't be with him. Because if he looked back and was like, oh, it was a terrible thing to do, I realized how horrible and insensitive it was, and I'm a different person now, maybe you could forgive him for that. But if he doesn't even realize that, then you can't be with him in the present day. Okay, anyway, let's get into the comments. Somebody said, he also seems to be a very respectful and caring person, apparently only to people who he deems attractive enough to be treated decently. Yeah, preach. Can't wait till he's a doctor and has to deal with women or teenage girls who may or may not have weight issues. Bet he'll be a frickin' treat. Ugh. Gross, someone else says. If your boyfriend still says it's a joke after maturing a bit and doesn't understand the deplorable nature of his actions and is telling you are overreacting and not fessing up to being a waste of space in college, yeah, that's a no. Character counts. That's literally exactly what I was saying. And then finally, I know a lot of people here are saying, yes, you're right, as in you're right to be disgusted by him, but you didn't choose to be disgusted and shocked. You just were. People don't choose their feelings, and feelings aren't something you sit around and have intellectual debates about. It doesn't matter if you're right or not. The fact is that you feel disgusted and there's no reasoning that feeling away. So you're asking the wrong question. The real question is, do I want to spend more time with someone who doesn't find this behavior disgusting? That's actually a very good point, because there'll be girls out there that won't find this disgusting. They'll probably, there won't be that many of them, but there will be girls that are like, oh yeah, it was a fun uni challenge. I get it. So for them, they won't be disgusted, but for more normal people, they will be. And I think that's a good way of phrasing it. Okay, so 4 days later, we got an update. Quick update. I confronted my boyfriend after his friends left and told him that I was genuinely concerned about his treatment of those girls. I said he lacked empathy, and I can't believe he doesn't see what was wrong with his actions. He finally acknowledged that, yes, what he did was mean. He says he didn't want to seem boring to his friends. I said I thought he was better than that. I told him I was worried about how he'd treat me if I gained weight in the future. He said that I was the type of person to, quote, always stay skinny. I said he can't be so sure of that. especially if I get pregnant. I said I was scared by his shallowness. Long story short, I broke up with him. Good decision. He's super sad and has been apologizing non-stop via text. No matter what he says, I just can't get his cruelty out of my head. It's made me much less attracted to him. And I don't want to be associated with that kind of person, as I am a new grad nurse in an eating disorder clinic, and I see the kind of effect that rude comments and actions have on young women. One of the teenage girl patients is anorexic because she used to be fat and was bullied in school. I'm disgusted to think that my boyfriend embodies the cruelty of her bullies. Well done to you for breaking up with him. And that is awful, what he's saying, how he feels, especially given that you're a new grad nurse in an eating disorder clinic and he obviously knows that. Like, keep your thoughts to yourself at the very least. I mean, look, somebody said in the comments, you're an eating disorder nurse and he thought you'd find that story funny. It sounds like you dodged an idiot bullet as well as a sociopath bullet. You made 100% the right decision. Couldn't agree more. And then finally, somebody said, I'm a guy. I knew people like that. My guess is that he doesn't feel bad at all. He only feels bad because he saw how you reacted. He most likely thought he was doing those fat girls a favor by giving them attention. Don't be fooled, OP. He doesn't feel bad. He's got a lot to prove if he wants to show remorse for being a cruel person. F that I was trying to impress my friends, BS. This is my experience with these kinds of people. Yeah, well said. So to sum up, obviously you are right to be disgusted by him. I do agree with that comment. You can't help the way you feel, but objectively, you should be disgusted by somebody like this, I think, if you're a sane person. And you did the right thing by breaking up with him. How is he going to say, you seem like the sort of person to always stay skinny? What if you get pregnant? What if you start eating more food? What if your hormones change? It's such a weird comment. And it's like a horrible thing as well, because I put myself in your shoes, OP. What if the person I'm with, like, as soon as I started putting on a little bit of weight, and who knows, like, you know, you could be going through anything and put on weight. They're like, actually, I'm going to break up with you because I thought you were always going to stay skinny and now you aren't. Now, don't get me wrong. Obviously, you want the person you're with to be in good shape, but it's not always going to be like that. So there we go. Very interesting story with a good outcome. All right, now moving on to our second story of this episode. My fiance and I are having the biggest argument of our lives. She thinks I'm being tacky, but I think she's overreacting. I don't know if I'm going crazy or what, but my fiance and I are having a huge argument. I'm a 27-year-old man, she is a 26-year-old woman. That is actually exactly the same as me and my girlfriend, interestingly, aren't even married yet. And we've never had an argument like this before in our entire relationship. I'm very invested in this to see what's going on. In my home province, engaged couples host a party before their wedding. People call it different things, a social or a Jack and Jill or a stag and doe. The purpose is for the couple to raise money. The couple rent a hall or some other venue. People pay an entrance fee and there are raffles and or games and or a silent auction. Family and friends of the couple donate the prizes. They bring food for a potluck and alcohol so drinks can be sold at the party. My fiance says this is the tackiest thing she's ever heard of and doesn't want us to have one. She refuses. She said it's the height of rudeness to hold a party where the guests have to pay to attend, donate prizes and money, and bring the food and alcohol. It's common to invite people to this if you are close to them as friends, but not close enough to invite them to your wedding. But my fiance almost exploded when she found out. She says there is no way we're having one, and we'll have the wedding and honeymoon we can afford. I don't know what her problem is. I've been to a ton of these in my life. Everyone I know who's gotten married has had one. My fiance said they don't have this in her home province and she's never heard of it before. I don't know if it's common in the province her and I currently live in or not. I went back home to my cousin's stag and doe when my fiance and I had just gotten together, but my fiance said she thought a stag and doe was a joint bachelorette party. Now my cousin's wife was pregnant and this was the second wedding for both of them, and I never said anything because I thought my fiance knew what it was. I don't see why she's refusing to have one or is digging in her heels so much. My family and friends keep asking about when we're going to have ours. They think it would be weird to not have one. My fiance's family and friends agree with her. I swear, I've never argued with anyone about anything so much in my life, and it's really starting to get to me. I think she's overreacting, and I'm tired of arguing. This is a really, really tough one because I understand it from both perspectives. From OP's perspective, this is like such a normal, customary thing that his family have done probably for generations. Everyone does it. It's just standard. I get it. But I also understand it from your fiance's perspective, OP, because she's like, so we're asking people who we don't know well enough to actually invite to our wedding to donate a load of stuff, bring a load of alcohol, food, spend money on us, just for us. That seems sort of like predatory in a way. So I get that as well. I'm not surprised that there's been an argument, to be honest. Let's see what the comments say before getting into the update. I have no idea how this is going to work out. Somebody said, OP, you need someone to give you advice who comes from a culture where getting married is a community event, where the whole purpose is coming together and helping the newlyweds with money gifts to get started on their new life. Too many ignorant white people here, judging a custom I don't have myself in my culture, but I can relate to the spirit of it. Because on the wedding day, there's a ceremony where guests pin money on the groom and put golden necklaces or rings or other valuable jewelry on the bride. Your fiancé is ignorant to your culture. That's the problem. She is centering her beliefs as the norm and is not able to acknowledge that what she feels like is tacky is a well-known tradition that you seem to value, and I do too from what you've described. Your fiancé should come down from her high horse and have a talk with you as to why she is so ignorant to your tradition. And you guys need to have a talk about traditions you value, especially with raising kids if you plan to have any, and traditions she values, and to see if you have similar values. Quite strong. Not 100% sure I agree with all of that, but fair enough overall. Opie replied to this saying, my fiancé and I are both white. We're Canadian. And both sets of her grandparents and both sets of my grandparents immigrated here from Scotland. Her and I come from the same culture and are the same race. If I misunderstood your post, I'm sorry, but I really don't understand what our race or culture has to do with anything. Yeah, I suppose that is fair. Okay, a couple more comments. Someone says, yeah, it does sound tacky as heck to me. Sorry, dude. Someone else says, so you invite people to this gimme party, but not your wedding? Your fiancé is right. It's tacky AF. I do slightly agree with that. But even if it wasn't, shouldn't your fiancé's feelings supersede a tradition? Why can't you change it up? Compromise on the party. You guys provide the food and drink and only invite people you're inviting to your wedding. And then finally somebody said, you're choosing between holding to tradition and the comfort of your fiancé. She's calling it tacky, but I guarantee it makes her uncomfortable to ask her family and friends to attend the event. Yeah, 100%. I think that's what she's thinking about. Like, how am I going to ask people to come to this and give us money? Like, it does potentially feel tacky. Like, yeah, you know, from her perspective, we should do the wedding and the honeymoon that we can afford because it's our wedding and our honeymoon. It is a very tradition and like culture-based thing, isn't it, a wedding? They're very different in different cultures. So I do believe there's a common ground to be found here, but it sounds like there's been a lot of arguing. Okay, over 6 months later, April 22nd, 2026, just a couple of weeks ago at the time of recording, we got this update. So the update is that my fiancé and I'm now 28, she's now 27, didn't get married. I posted here 6 months ago about how we were having the biggest argument of our entire relationship. Back then, I had no idea that all the arguing and all the things I said would lead to this, but all the fighting and anger exposed the cracks in our relationship and things began to fall apart. Maybe our relationship wasn't as strong as I thought it was. I don't know. I regret the way I acted and the things I said. No matter how much we were fighting, I know at the end of the day, the breakup was ultimately my fault because of how I acted. There was a big divide between us because my ex-fiancée and her family and friends thought having a social, Jack and Jill, before the wedding was tacky and the height of rudeness. Me, my family, and my friends thought having one was fine. The wedding was supposed to be on Saturday. Today, we would have been 4 days married and on our honeymoon somewhere. But instead, I'm trying to get over the pain of our breakup. I don't even see or talk to her now. No advice wanted, in bold. Damn. Okay, jumping straight to the comments. Somebody said, not surprised this massive cultural difference broke you up. I worked at an American wedding venue for nearly a decade. I've literally attended hundreds of weddings and worked in the planning of many more, and had never heard of using acquaintances to fundraise for newlywed life until your post. It's that much of a cultural difference. May you find your true match one day soon. I do agree. I don't like that. Asking acquaintances to donate money to you. Sure, it's tradition, but as a principle, if you're asking for money or gifts, those people 100% should be attending your wedding. And if they're not, then that just doesn't sit right with me. Now, somebody else said 100% team ex-fiance. What you were asking of her was extremely tacky. She made it abundantly clear she wasn't comfortable. That should have been the end of the conversation. You made a conscious decision to disrespect the feelings of a woman who was meant to be your wife. That was the hill you chose to die on, and now it's time for the funeral. You brought this upon yourself. Maybe that's fair. I do feel like we do have to accept OP's point of view as well, that like this is such a customary thing. All his family have done it. They're like, when's it happening? So to him, it's not like a crazy thing to suggest at all. And the fact that he wouldn't have one would be an anomaly within his culture and within his family and like, you know, friends. So I understand it from his perspective as well. And it's probably hard because he's thought about it like his entire life. Like, yeah, obviously I'm going to have my Jack and Jill, then I'm going to get married. It's just what I do, what everyone around me does. But maybe you can be big enough to take yourself out of that situation, listen to your now ex-fiance and be like, okay, let's compromise, let's do it slightly differently. I do think there definitely was a compromise there, which was not inviting acquaintances that weren't going to go to your wedding and just inviting people that weren't going to go to your wedding. That's fine. Like, you're allowed wedding gifts, and I'm sure your ex-fiance would welcome wedding gifts as well. And then finally, my man, you got battered in the comments 6 months ago, this person said, and it seems like you should have listened to Reddit and your ex. Commiserations. I wish you happiness in the future. That is brutally tough. Maybe it's brutally fair. You let me know in the comments down below. This man asked for advice as to how to apologize to his son for kicking him out for being gay. Okay, so we're going back to May the 14th, 2016 for the start of this. So I'm new to this sub, but I decided to use a throwaway because I'm embarrassed about what I did to my son. 11 years ago, I was a very conservative Christian. I was the type that would go to church with my family every Sunday and actually look forward to going. If you would have told me that I consider myself atheist in the future, I would have laughed in your face. I'm not proud of the man I used to be, but at the time, I really thought I was being the best person I could by living as a Christian and following God's rules. My son was outed when he was 16, and I reacted the way you'd expect a conservative Christian father to react, with hate and anger. At the time, I didn't think of it as hate though. I thought of myself as a good and loving father for being so upset that my son had chosen a sinful lifestyle. I forced him to go to counselling, but it didn't work. I know now that's because it never works, but at the time I blamed my son for not trying hard enough. I eventually kicked him out of the house because I couldn't have him there as a bad influence on his younger brothers and sisters. I never contacted him again, and he never contacted me or anyone else in our family. His mother died 2 years later, and because of the way she died, I started to question my faith. I started researching Christianity and science on my own, and eventually I stopped going to church. I gradually became less conservative, and now I consider myself atheist. I've been thinking a lot about my son the last couple of years. Every time I think about him, I feel like crying, and to be honest, I've shed a few tears while writing this. There's nothing I can do or say to make up for what I did, but I found his address online, and I also found his Facebook profile. When I started looking him up, I was scared to death of what I'd find, but it looks like he's doing good. I've been thinking a lot about how I should contact him, and even if I should, I'm so worried about how he'll react that I've written him about 15 letters and never actually sent one of them. I think that's the best way to go about it, sending a letter. But every time I write one and read it afterwards, I just imagine him reading it and throwing it in the garbage and chicken out and throw it away myself. I've not talked to my other kids about him and they've never brought him up. I just need advice on how to actually send the letter, what to write, and if I should even send it. Any advice at all would be greatly appreciated. Wow. I mean, where do I even start with that? To be honest, the one thing that comes to my mind, and I do mean this, is that you have no right to contact your son. He, if he wants to in the future, can contact you, but you have no right to contact him after what you've done. And you cannot blame this on religion. I'm sorry, you can't. You can't use religion as some sort of front and say that you hid behind it and you didn't know any better because you were a Christian and you went to church. Your actions were still your own actions. Doesn't matter if they were influenced by God or any religion or anything. You were the one that kicked your son out at the age of 16. So you have no right to contact him. And I think that you shouldn't. And if he wants to contact you, he'll contact you. But you made your bed. That is my honest reaction, to be honest. Because I can't imagine being that kid and being like, well, I've been kicked out of my family home because I'm gay. So that's my thoughts. But obviously, there's a long way to go in this story. We're going to get an update, of course. And first of all, we're going to have a look through what other commenters on Reddit have said. And I'll be honest, they're a little bit more lenient than me. But yeah, let me know in the comments down below. For those of you that are strongly religious or are atheist, I'm an atheist, that's worth saying. What do you think about what I've just said there? Do you agree or disagree? Do you think if someone is no longer religious, they can therefore go back on terrible things they've done in the past and apologize for them because they were religious? I mean, who knows? I don't, but interested to see your thoughts. As always, let's jump into the comments. Somebody said, "Oh, that is so hard. I think any letter you send should include the following: a complete apology with 0 qualifiers, an acknowledgement that you have done him a terrible wrong and that he is under no obligation to forgive you, your desire to be back in his life, on his terms, on his schedule, your willingness to facilitate a relationship with your other children that is not dependent on your son's relationship with you, in case your son wants to see his siblings, but not you, and then leave the door open for him to take the next step." Yeah, good advice if you're okay with this guy sending his son a letter, which I'm not, to be honest. But if you are going to send a letter anyway, that is a great structure and it reads well and it is right. And maybe you could argue that just because this man did something so horrible so long ago, they have now changed. Therefore, should they still be paying for their sins themselves 10 years, 11 years later? I would argue to that. You've given your son so much trauma and therefore, again, you don't get to decide this. And they're not just going to be like, "Oh, my dad's apologized after 11 years. I feel great now. The last 11 years of my life have been fantastic." Let's see what OP replied to this. As you can probably tell, guys, by the way, I'm not a big fan of OP or people like him. Anyway, I've written the same letter a million times, but I would love to get some objective thoughts on it because every time I read and write it, it never seems like enough. Okay, here is the letter. Lucas, I don't even know where to begin when I write this letter. I've written it many times, but it never seems good enough to send to you. The first thing I have to apologize for is not telling you your mother died. She was diagnosed with ALS and passed away 9 years ago. I never contacted you to let you know she died, and I don't know if anyone else in our family did. Either way, I'm really sorry for not telling you and robbing you of the chance to say goodbye to your mother. Again, it's very difficult for me to read this without immediately being like, this is ridiculous. What? How can you not tell your kid that their mum's dying? Because they're gay. What? That makes 0 sense to me. Your mother's death was extremely difficult for all of us, and it made me start to question my faith. Everyone at our church helped our family through her death, but I still had a lot of questions. So I started doing research on our religion and science. After a while, I realized I couldn't continue following the word of God the way I was brought up to do. It might be very hard for you to believe, but I no longer consider myself religious. So my wife was taken away from me earlier than she should have been, and that made me think, maybe God doesn't exist and maybe I'm not a fan of this religion, and therefore I'm now allowed to apologize to you. Not sure about that. Anyway, which brings me to how I treated you. At the time, I did what I thought was right for our family and you, but that does not change the fact that what I did was unforgivable. No, you didn't do what was right for your family. You didn't, because it was a terrible thing to do. Don't care about your religion. Not only did I kick you out when you really needed our love and support, but I made you go through counselling, which I've learned is closer to torture than actual counselling. I don't know what you did once you left home, but it truly breaks my heart to think of the things you might have done to survive. No one on earth deserves to go through what you've been through because of me, and I want you to know that I'm so sorry for what I've put you through. I completely understand if you never want to hear from me again, but I had to send this letter to you to know that if you want me in your life, I'm here. Whenever you're ready, in any way that you want. If you just want contact with your brothers and sisters, that's fine. If it takes you years to talk to me, that's fine. If you never want any contact with me, that's fine. Of course, I want to be a part of your life again, but if that's not something you want, I completely understand. There's no excuse for what I've done, and even if you are able to forgive me, I don't think I can ever forgive myself. I've known I should have sent this letter for years, but I've been too ashamed of myself to send it. I hope you feel no obligation to contact me. I only send this letter so that you know that I'm here for you now if you want. I love you so much, and I'll do whatever you want to make up for what I've done, even if that means never reaching out to you again, Dad. And there we go. I think I have to tell his brothers and sisters about this before sending the letter, and if they want, I'll include their contact information so that he doesn't have to go through me to reach out to them. As I said earlier, it's a struggle for me to read that and take it seriously. Like, obviously, like, it's just, I don't, like, yeah, now he's apologizing because he's realized what he did was so horrible. And I don't know if this is like his sort of way of being like, I don't know, making himself feel better because he literally kicked his son out at 16 for being gay. And I want to remember that point. That is the main point here. This man has done that. Okay? So whatever other opinions you have on whatever I'm saying, or him or his son or anything, he kicked out his son at 16 for being gay. And that is literally all that I can have in my mind. How can you ever forgive someone for that? I don't think you can. I'm also wondering about OP's son's siblings and like what they have to do with this. Hopefully we'll get more information later on, but surely his siblings now are of an age where they can think for themselves, and probably have been for a while, right? If OP's son is 27, maybe they're still religious as well, but could they not have like tried to get in contact, or you know, what happened when the family kicked his son out? Lucas, were they not, you know, told, or they were told that was the reason? They were like, oh yeah, it's fine. I don't know. A lot of questions. Let's carry on. All right. Someone else commented, I'm about your son's age now, and I haven't had a relationship with my family since about 21. It was incredibly painful and difficult, but I'm also doing pretty well now, and it made me who I am. If even now my parents sent me a genuine, true apology with no qualifiers, said they understood they could never take back the pain they caused, but wanted to know if there was anything they could do, anything at all, that would make up for it even a little, I'd be overjoyed. Okay. Well, first, I'd be furious. I'd probably yell at them, tell them they have some gall to try and make amends now after how they failed me. But if they let me yell and rage, told me to get it out, and they knew they deserved it, and still just expressed contrition and desire to be there for me on my own terms, it would take a great deal of time and a lot of yelling and tears, but eventually maybe something new could grow there. I think you should write to your son and tell him everything you told us, and make very sure to focus on his feelings and experiences. Make sure it's clear that everything will be on his terms. Maybe offer to pay for a session with a family therapist of his choice, and tell him that if he wants to spend the entire session just telling you how freaking angry he is, that's fine, and you'll accept it. Anyway, I hope my perspective is somewhat useful. Please send the letter. Send more than one if you have to, and tell him you'll respect anything he says. But you need to make it clear to him how much you want to be in his life in whichever way will make his life better. If and when he gets angry or says something hurtful to you, be calm, tell him you understand he's angry and hurting, and apologize again. Yeah, great advice on the surface. I just can't really get over the main point of this entire story. I can't. If my dad did that to me at the age of 16, I mean, it's hard to know, isn't it? Because I'm obviously not in that position, but I'd like to think that I would feel disgusted that he'd even have the audacity to send me a letter to apologize. How can you apologize for 11 years of like trauma and being kicked out of your, like, you just can't. Like, I don't know, if I murdered your sister watching this right now and then apologized to you, I mean, I don't know, we talk about like forgiveness and stuff, but maybe this son Lucas needs this, but it's very hard for me to genuinely be like, yeah, send the letter, you deserve to send the letter. But sure, let's carry on. OP replied, your perspective is very useful, thank you. I've tried to imagine what he might feel or think if I send a letter a million times, but to actually read your thoughts on this is very eye-opening. I can handle him yelling at me if it means I get to see him and hear his voice again. Yeah, you can handle him yelling at you for 11 years of disgraceful behavior. It's like, this is just, I can't find comparisons here at all that make this like right or fair to send a letter. That's, I think, what I'm getting at. If you can't tell, I'm not a big fan of OP here. Despite the fact that he seems like a nice person in terms of his actual writing, and yeah, it's good that he wants to apologize, I'm not a fan of him at all. Someone else said, a few things. Does he know his mother is dead? You need to make no excuses whatsoever or try and qualify your behavior. This is about him, not about you. Keep in mind, this might still probably be a huge source of pain for him. You getting in touch might upset him deeply. Is it worth it? Especially since he's in a good place. This may well have been extremely hard earned given what happened to him. That comment on screen is very, very good. Big fan indeed. What you're doing is a fairly common technique for people who have behaved as you have to lure the sinner back in and try and fix them again. Oh my goodness. He may be aware of this and believe this to be your motivation. I hope not. 100% use Facebook. Do not use his address. Knowing that you know his address might scare the heck out of him. Make contact with zero expectations. He is well within his rights to either ignore you or send you a very strong negative response. I'm sorry about your wife, and I'm very sorry you found yourself in this situation with your boy. You're learning the you reap what you sow lesson in the hardest way. Again, yeah, he is. But what about his son? Like, his son would be, I don't know, he'd give away a lifetime to learn the reap what you sow lesson. He's learning the lesson of, well, no lesson, but he's dealing with my family completely betrayed me, disowned me, and just sacked me off at the age of 16 because I'm gay. And that's a bit of a harder lesson, I think, to have to learn than you reap what you sow. Although I am disgusted, I must say props to you for changing your mind on this, the comment continues, and taking a more positive path and outlook. You have no idea how rare you are, and I know that must have taken great strength and a ruthless and painful analysis of your behavior to do so. I hope you find some peace on this issue either way. No, you're not getting any props from me. Sorry. I'm not as lenient as this commenter. I would not say props to you for changing your mind, because I wouldn't want anything to do with you ever. To be honest, this all comes back to me. If you have this belief that being gay is worth kicking your child out over, then you are one of the worst people on the planet. So I don't care if you repent or you realise you're wrong. I just don't care. Anyway, OP replied, I don't know if he knows about his mum dying. I never contacted him to tell him, and I don't know if anyone in our family did. Very good. That seems nice. Then, in relation to the comment about it might being a huge source of pain for Lucas, OP said, that's why I'm considering not contacting him at all. I don't know what he's been through because of what I did. I'm just relieved he's alive. But it's not uncommon for kids in that situation to live on the street and get themselves into a lot of trouble. If he's at a good place right now, I don't want him to have to relive everything he's been through. I felt like Facebook would be more invasive than a letter, but maybe in this day and age, it's the opposite. Yeah, if there's any tiny doubt that you might change his, I don't know, life in any way, and it looks like it's good, OP's son this is, then you don't send the letter. And clearly there is doubt, so therefore you don't send the letter. And you deal with your crimes for the rest of your life. All right, interesting comment here. Out of curiosity, what are your other children's take on this? Here we go. Have they expressed any interest in reaching out to him? We haven't talked about him in years. At the time, me and his mother told him he was kicked out because he'd chosen a sinful life and that there was nothing more we could do for him and that he needed to find his way back to God on his own. We never said he was gay. Around the time I was starting to realize that what I'd done was wrong, one of the kids asked about him while we were eating dinner, and I reacted very badly and told them to never ask about him again. I felt guilty, and I knew they'd be pretty upset if they knew why he was kicked out, so I couldn't bring myself to talk about it with them. Oh my goodness me, do they still not know the reason he was kicked out? If they don't know, then you are an even bigger disgrace than I thought you were when I first started reading this. I'm going to be honest, this is extremely hard for me to read, because I'm just getting angry, because it's just so stupid. There are 3 things in here which I hate so much, which I can explain at the end. But this is challenging to read. I'm going to get through it, I think. But if I get more angry, I might have to stop. Right, someone else said, you may need to practice in a way by coming clean to your kids at home first. You can't really humble yourself to your eldest child if you haven't faced the music at home. They need to know and process what you did to their eldest sibling. You're going to have to humble yourself at the most basic level to your children because you failed as a parent immensely. Hopefully, your children didn't inherit your religious zeal. Boom. I like that a lot. You never mentioned how your wife felt about your actions before she passed, how she felt about you kicking her child out, for example. We made the choice together, OP said. I expected her to ask me to find him when she was dying so that she could say goodbye, but she never did. If I had just done it without waiting for her to ask, things might have been very different now. It's a good thing she died. A painful death. Yeah, I'm going to that extent. I genuinely am. Someone said, we don't usually get much of a chance to ask people about decisions like kicking their son out of the house. So I'm going to ask, how did you reconcile that with Christianity? What part of the Bible says you can abandon your minor child just because they lead a sinful lifestyle? Presumably you are aware as a Christian that everyone is an unrepentant sinner, yes? Why did you believe at the time that the sin of homosexuality was somehow in a category of its own? I'm atheist now too, but even as a creationist, evangelical Christian, I couldn't have countenanced the action you took. And I can't understand the Christian parents who believe that the God of the prodigal son wants them to abandon their children to the streets. What on earth did you think you were doing? Exactly. Then this commenter quotes the now 11 years later, I feel horrible for what I did and want to contact him and apologize, but I can't get myself to send the letter, saying, do you deserve his forgiveness before you've even found the courage to ask for it? Roasted. Hope you replied to this, and we are going to get into the update just after this. I don't want it to seem like I'm defending what I did, but I can explain the way we were thinking. At the time, I was sure being gay was a choice, and if we let him stay in our house, our other children would think we were accepting of his choice to live in sin, and it would be easier for them to follow in his footsteps. We also believed that we'd given him all the help we could, and that there was nothing more we could do. He needed to hit rock bottom and find his way back to God on his own. We believed we were helping all of our children making that decision. I know, it sounds ridiculous, but at the time, it all made perfect sense to us. I cannot stress how much I need this update to be negative in terms of OP and him not getting what he wants. And either him not sending a letter, which would be fantastic. I don't think that's going to happen. Not getting in contact at all would be great. But if his son, I don't know, accepts his apology, I'll just be gutted. Because I just don't think you can get away with that sort of stuff. Let's see what happens, right? I'll be devastated, by the way, if this apology gets accepted. I really will. May 30th, 2016, 2 weeks after the original post. This is the update. Actually, sorry, before we get into that, there is just one final edit that OP left on his original post after all the comments, saying, I just wanted to add a thank you for all the great advice. I know some of you think I come across as if I'm expecting him to forgive me and have a relationship with me straight away. This isn't the case. I'm very much aware that the chance of him never wanting any contact with me is pretty high, but I'm not sending the letter just because I want to possibly have him in my life again. I feel like he deserves to hear that I know that what I did was wrong. He deserves an apology. What he does with the information in the letter is his choice, and whatever choice he makes will be accepted and respected by me. I've called all my other kids and invited them to dinner tomorrow so that I can tell them about their brother and the letter. I'm very nervous about it, but it has to be done sooner rather than later. Okay, let's see what happened after that. This is the update. I just wanted to give you guys an update and also thank you for all the great advice and insight. It was really tough to read some of the more angry comments, but I understand why some of you were angry with me. What I did was horrible and unforgivable, so I was expecting a few angry comments. Yeah, I imagine it was tough to read some angry comments. Now imagine how tough it might have been to be kicked out your own house for being gay at 16. Something to think about. What did bother me a little bit though was everyone who was saying that I only wanted to apologize to my son out of selfish reasons and wanted to guilt him into being in my life again. It worried me that that was the impression I was giving some of you because that's not what I wanted at all. I love my son and I just felt like he deserved an apology and a chance at having a relationship with his siblings, and that if he wanted me back in his life, I'm here now, even though I should have always been there for him. I wasn't expecting him to want to have contact with me again, but I wanted him to know it was an option if that's what he wanted. Again, you deserve an apology, son, and a chance at having a relationship with your siblings. Yeah, we didn't need to lose 11 years for that to be obvious. It's unfathomable to me. I invited my kids over for dinner the day after I posted here, and they all came, and I sat them down. So they've all left the house, by the way, that means as well. And I sat them down and I told them the truth. It was a very painful conversation for all of us and lots of tears, but I was happy the truth was finally out. They all wanted to send him letters as well, and we decided to send them together with all our contact information. I feel bad for the kids, you know. Imagine that. Your dad's told you that what actually happened when you were probably very young, impressionable. You know, when you're young, you have to massively respect your parents, and you take their actions and what they do is like the right thing a lot of the time, because that's just how it is. And then you get told 11 years later, the reason why you haven't spoken to your brother in 11 years is because your parents kicked him out for being gay. How do you react to that? It's crazy. Anyway, I don't know how to explain the feeling I had after we sent the letters. It was a mix of a lot of emotions, and then waiting to see if he'd reply to any of the letters was also a weird mix of emotions. I didn't really know what to expect, but I couldn't help but hope that he would at least reply to one of us. Our family tried to eat dinner together every Sunday. It's an old habit. Everyone can't always make it, but the Sunday after sending the letters, we were all together. No one had heard from him yet, which wasn't really surprising. We talked about how he probably needed time to process everything. It must be very bizarre and overwhelming to suddenly get an envelope full of letters from your estranged family. The doorbell rang while we were eating dinner, and my oldest daughter answered it. When she came back, we were extremely shocked to see that the person at the door was my son. I can't help but cry while I'm writing this because it was just so emotional to see him standing there in front of me. Everyone got up to hug him, but I wasn't sure what to do, so I just sort of stood there with tears in my eyes. Is that because he's gay? He didn't want to touch him? Makes sense. When his siblings let him go, he looked at me, and I was half expecting him to yell at me and half expecting him to punch me, but he just walked over and gave me a hug. I completely broke down and he started to cry too. We all stood there crying for a minute before we finally were ready to actually talk, and we all talked for hours. There's no words to describe how it felt to see my son after all these years and hear him talk. I could listen to him talk all day, apart from the fact you couldn't, because you didn't listen to him talk for about 3,500 days, actually more, between you kicking him out at the age of 16 and him being 27. He said he couldn't figure out what to write in a letter or what to say in a phone call, so he just got in his car and drove here. It was really unexpected, but really wonderful. He told us about his life from the day he left, and it was very difficult to hear what he'd been through because of me, but I needed to hear it. Apparently, his aunt, my sister, had been in contact with him after he left, and she told him about his mum dying, and she sent him money now and then. There you go, an actual, wow, a decent person in this story, that's nice. He's been through a lot, but he's doing really well now. After sitting and talking for a couple of hours, we went outside to talk, just him and me, and long story short, he forgives me. He said that it will take a long time for him to really trust me again, I hope he never does, but that he's been angry with me for years and he's tired of it and ready to start building a relationship again. My question here is this. Obviously holding on to that much anger for so long is extremely tiring. I can't even imagine. Is there a chance that OP's son is forgiving his dad just so that he can relax a bit more in his life and not wake up every day so furious with his parents and with the life that was, pushed on him at 16? Do you know what I mean? In a way, what I'm trying to get at is he actually genuinely forgiving, or does the trauma and what he lives with has that forced him to forgive so that he can go on living his life and not have that much anger each and every day? You let me know in the comments down below, because I think to myself, if I was that angry every single day, I would not be able to carry on. Therefore, I would have to change something. Interesting topic of debate. Comments? I can't wait for them. I genuinely cannot wait on this story. Anyway, he left about an hour after our conversation, and we all exchanged phone numbers, and his siblings added him on all their social media stuff. He lives about an hour and a half away, but he said he'll let us know when he's got time for another Sunday dinner. He sent me a couple of texts since then, and I couldn't be happier than I am right now. I know I don't deserve to be forgiven, and I don't deserve to have a relationship with my son, but I'd be lying if I said that I didn't have a small hope that it would happen. I know that I have to be extremely respectful towards his wishes and let him take the lead with all of this. I told him to let me know if he felt like we were being too pushy and that he's the boss of this whole situation. We all want to go at the pace he feels comfortable at, and he's always welcome here whenever he feels like it. Isn't that nice? How lovely. So yeah, I'm extremely excited for the future and also incredibly grateful for all the advice you guys gave me. You really gave me the push I needed to tell my kids and send that letter. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Let's get into the comments before I give my final... What is a good word to use here? Disparaging just doesn't seem anywhere near strong enough. comments, was what I was going to say. Anyway, your sister is a saint, and you should also thank her as well for actually acting like family to her nephew. Yes. OP, I went by her house the day after with flowers and cake as thank you. I asked her how much money she sent him and offered to pay her back, but she refused. So I'll just have to get her really nice birthday presents the rest of her life. Yeah, make sure to get your son nice birthday presents as well for the rest of his life, to make up for the 11 years which you just ruined. Someone else said, why didn't you ask him to sit down to dinner with the family? I did. He wasn't hungry though. We all sat at the dining room table and talked. And there we go. That was a struggle. That was a very, very tough story to read. And multiple times during that, I wanted to stop reading because I think this whole thing is an absolute disgrace. But I suppose we got through it. Just like reading the comments on this, I hope they successfully reconnected and worked through all the pain caused by OP. I just don't know if I agree with that. OP does not deserve any part in his son's life at all. I want his son to run off and be super happy, and I want OP to die. That is what I genuinely think. Now let me talk about his kids, his siblings, OP's siblings. I feel very sorry for them as well, and I don't really blame them because, as I said earlier, I do think you follow your parents' lead in this sort of thing. But again, are they not aware enough when they get to the age of 18 plus that they have a sibling that they haven't seen in years? Would you not be really would you not just want to get in contact despite the fact that your dad said no more discussion about this? I could not be intrigued by that and want to get in contact with my brother of all people and work out what has gone on there. So yeah, I don't blame them. I do think they could have done more though. Yeah, I mean, I'm just reiterating what I've been saying this whole episode, but I just think this whole religious thing of you can't be gay, it's against my religion is such a disgrace. And people that believe that sort of stuff do not deserve any forgiveness ever and deserve to rot in hell. Maybe the most strong I've ever been on one of these episodes, but I'm not going to sugarcoat my reaction to this. I know there'll be people watching that don't agree. There'll be very religious people watching this that are the opposite of me, but I'm not going to lie about how I feel about this one. I think this whole thing is an absolute disgrace. I mean, I know my granny watches pretty much all of these videos. She has my uncle, a gay son. Imagine if she had kicked him out. It's just ridiculous. I can't quite fathom that some people do this sort of thing and then use their religion, or do it because their religion, use their religion to allow it. I don't know. It's crazy. Thankfully, this is happening less and less in the world. My uncle is married to my other uncle, which is great. Hopefully, I'm actually going to be seeing him next week in Poland, which would be amazing if he's able to come. But yeah, imagine I was told at a young age, oh no, you can't see your uncle, sadly, because yeah, he did something so sinful that you can never see him again. And I was like, oh, I wonder what that is. Oh yeah, he's gay. He was born gay. There we go. Am I wrong for thinking about divorcing my wife? My wife, who is 30, and I, also 30, have been together for 8 years, married for 5. She's been my soulmate. We hit the same vibe, same hobby, working out, staying home and doing nothing, or just go out and eat some great food. We think alike, we rarely fight, mainly because I let her get away with anything. The main difference we have is our temper. I have a pretty good tolerance towards her, but on the other hand, she has a terrible temper. Her parents were amazed by how much I've helped her to control it. I usually don't mind when she's throwing a tantrum or getting into a trashy mood and lashing everything out on me for no reason. I have pretty good patience. I'll let her finish her shenanigans, then try to talk some sense into her on why she shouldn't act like that. But lately, things have been getting a bit out of control. 1. My parents want to visit us. I haven't seen them for about 5 years because she refuses to let me visit them or let them visit me. I'm just going to stop immediately right here. What is that? I don't need to read any more of this to, first of all, answer the question, no, obviously you're not wrong for thinking about divorcing your wife. And secondly, to say this is much more serious than divorce. That is like controlling abuse. You haven't seen your parents in 5 years because she doesn't let you see them. That is mental. Anyway, let's carry on. I miss them a lot, so this time I was pretty firm about letting them come. and she started going bat crazy, and she kept saying she doesn't want to spend any time with my parents due to their difference in political view, and she doesn't like my father's tone. Eventually, I got her to calm down, but she made me promise to only let them come for 2 weeks, and I can only take them out during weekends, and they are not allowed to cook inside the house because it smells. I cook pretty much every day at home, and she's never complained. 2. She would force me to sit next to her and do nothing all night long when I could be doing my own stuff. She would say stuff like she wants me to spend time with her, sure, but then she'll just read her manga or watch his drama that only she enjoys and refuse to let me do my own stuff just because she said so. 3. I really want kids, and she gave me a list of stuff I gotta do if she's pregnant. I'm not gonna list this out, that'll be another huge post, but one example would be I have to give her a massage every day for an hour. 4. No sex at all. The reason she gave me is that I'm fat and I have a belly. Keep in mind, I'm 6 foot, 180 pounds. I work out pretty much every day. I do have a little bit of belly fat because of my love towards soda, but come on, no one else thinks I'm fat except her. I'm pretty sure I'm also exactly these height and weight measurements. I mean, I'm like 6 foot, 6 foot and a half, and I weigh 80 kg. So that's about 180 pounds, isn't it? Yeah, it's 176 pounds. I mean, you let me know in the comments down below. You can't see my full body. I'm not going to do a full body reveal. But am I fat? I don't think so. Number 5. Oh, God. I mean, if it wasn't bad enough, she really likes to hit me. And she kept saying I enjoy it when I've expressed my dislike and repeatedly told her to stop. So, I'm starting to doubt if she's the one I want to spend the rest of my life with. We built so much together. I'm also afraid of letting everything go. Well, let me tell you, my friend, you're being abused. Like, if it wasn't obvious from the first 4 points, you are actually being physically abused as well. So no, you're not wrong in wanting to divorce her. You need to divorce her now because what she's doing is actually illegal. It's not just she's not the right person for you. I don't care what you've built together. She is abusing you and controlling your entire life. Just get out of that as quickly as you can. Isn't it mental? Like, you read a post like this and you're like, it's so obvious that this is not the right relationship because this woman is awful. But you still feel bad for OP, not because of what's going on and what's happening to them. That is obvious. But just the fact that they have listed all this stuff that is just so ridiculously abusive, yet they're still questioning whether they are in the wrong or not for thinking about divorcing this woman. It's like insane. It just needs someone to pull OP out and say, look, read this, and you don't know anything about the person that's written this or the woman that he's married. Just read this like objectively and ask yourself, should this man be with this woman or should he leave? That's all it needs, but it's just crazy that when you're in the situation, you don't realize. Okay, now moving on to our next post. Am I wrong for throwing a line my parents always used to use on me back in their faces? Throwaway account because I'm pretty certain my brothers have read it and I don't want them to know my main. I am a 27-year-old woman and I've always been the kid who my parents didn't give a crap about. As the middle child, it was always, oh, your sibling needs us more. And my needs were quite often just not met. Any attempt to get my parents to do something with or for me was met with being called selfish and told my siblings' needs came before mine right now. Neither of my siblings have special needs. They're just both kind of spoiled brats. My brothers, who are 30 and 25, are the golden oldest child and their precious baby. I was the unwanted girl child in the middle. They made this clear in all sorts of ways, from not wanting to pay for my school supplies and wanting me to figure it out, to the way birthdays were treated, to Christmas. Forget them showing up to anything for me, but I was expected to drop everything to show up to any and everything my brothers did. Brothers both got brand new cars for their 16th birthdays, but I didn't need one. I got a rusty bike they found at a garage sale and told if I could fix it up, they guessed I could have it. I fixed it up and they gave it to my brother instead. I moved in with my aunt on my 18th birthday. I'm getting married to a wonderful woman and my parents just recently found out. They called me several kinds of butthurt as to why I hadn't told them, and then immediately started in on how I couldn't do certain things because of my brothers. I can't have a nice chicken or fish dish, it has to be steak or pizza or they won't eat it. I can't be too affectionate because you know how guys get around two girls being together. I can't have a wedding party if they can't be involved. I finally snapped. I told them that neither they nor my apparently perverted brothers were invited. That for once, something was about me, not them. I told them I had no interest in making my wedding about their crappy sons who've achieved nothing in life so far because they babied them to the point of uselessness. My wedding was not about what they wanted. My mother cried and my father asked why I was treating them so poorly. I said, "You're just being selfish. My needs come before yours right now." There was a stunned silence before my father told me that it wasn't fair that I'd say that to them because this was a different situation. I hung up and I blocked them both. But my cousin, who I'm close to, said they were making a huge ordeal out of it. They've been calling other family members and then being surprised when they're told, yes, they can believe I'd not want them making my wedding about them or my brothers. My mother apparently posted a long "woe is me, where did I go wrong" post on Facebook, but took it down after my aunt lit her up in the comments about where she went wrong. My older brother reached out just once to ask if he really wasn't invited, and I said yeah, he really wasn't. He seemed a little upset, but at this point, I don't even care. All he said after that was that I shouldn't have said what I did to our parents, and that they are upset they aren't even invited to the wedding. And even if I didn't invite him or our other brother, I should at least invite them. I refused, and I hung up. My parents and brothers don't know when or where we're getting married. I never intended to invite them, but eloping is starting to look pretty good right about now. My grandmother has reached out only once to say, while she kind of understands why I don't want them there, it was kind of a low blow to throw the line they always used on me back in their faces. I thought maybe I'd get some third-party opinions here, but I don't think I was wrong. No, you were completely right, and I'm so sorry that you've had that as your childhood and that those people are your parents. I don't understand how parents can be like that. Is that just like a "we didn't want a girl, we just wanted boys" thing? That's not a middle child thing. Because I know there's that whole stereotype about the middle child, but this is like the most blatant favoritism ever that once again is bordering on abuse. Probably is abuse, to be fair. Like, that's not normal. So yeah, well done for moving out at 18. Crazy as well that your aunt, who I presume is your mum's sister, maybe she's not, maybe she's your dad's sister, doesn't really matter, but crazy that she can have such a different personality than your mum or brother, whoever's sister she is. I just find that weird that like people from the same family who are siblings can be so different. But yeah, great move, throwing that line back in their face, but you could do so much more and they would still owe you an entire childhood. Am I wrong for telling my boyfriend that if he goes to a strip club for either of these events, it's a wrap on our relationship? My boyfriend, who is 28, and I, 27-year-old woman, have been together for 3 years. Since the beginning of our relationship, I made it very clear that strip clubs and strippers, even if not at a club, were an absolute deal breaker for me. I told him I will not be with somebody that goes, and if he ever does, it's the end of our relationship and I will walk away. My boyfriend has a pretty close group of friends, and in this group are 2 of his cousins, Charlie, who is a 32-year-old man, and James, who's almost 30. James's 30th birthday is this weekend, and Charlie is getting married at the end of September. My boyfriend came up to me today after work and asked me to talk with him for a bit. I, of course, sat down to listen. He told me the group wanted to either go to a strip club or have private strippers for both James's birthday and Charlie's bachelor party. He went on to explain that 30 is a milestone birthday and Charlie only plans to get married once, so this is the one time he will have a bachelor party and get married. Very strange sentence. Yeah, I only plan on getting married once. I mean, do some people plan on getting married multiple times? Maybe they do, to be fair, but weird sentence nonetheless. He said he knows I'm against strippers and strip clubs, but could I just be cool with it for these 2 events and that he would make it up to me? I immediately said no. He just repeated, "No?" back to me. I confirmed that I did say no. I told him that while I can't forbid him from doing something and I cannot control him, I can choose how I respond to the boundary stomping and the disrespect. He asked what I meant by that, and I informed him that if he did go to a strip club or have strippers, the relationship would be over. He got very peeved and asked, "Did you expect me to just not go to either party or leave if strippers are a part of it?" I informed him he did not need to attend, but yes, if he wanted me to stay in a relationship with him, I did expect him to leave if strippers get involved in the plans. He got even more upset and said that would be embarrassing and all the guys would rag on him. I told him what would be embarrassing would be disrespecting a boundary I laid out before we even became official. I told him that strippers were a hard no for me before we became official, so he could decide if he was okay with that. And if they'd rag on him for not participating in strippers, then they're not really good friends. He ended the conversation and has been short with me ever since. What I will say is that it's very interesting that you even had that conversation with your boyfriend before you became official. Like, that is not a conversation that I would ever expect to have with anyone that I was going to become official with or was just seeing or anything, because it's just, in my opinion, the most unnecessary conversation. It's like saying before you become official with somebody, so just checking, right? If you cheat on me all the time with loads of women, you know, like, that's not going to run in our relationship. Like, I'm going to have to break up with you. For me, it's like the same as that. Like, obviously, your girlfriend is not going to want you to be around strippers or go to strip clubs. Like, that is obviously a deal breaker. Like, with my girlfriend now, we've never talked about strippers, because why would you need to talk about strippers? I'm not going to go to a strip club or have strippers involved. I kind of get it in this situation. Like, you know, I do think the whole thing about like strippers at bachelor parties or like stag do's and going to strip clubs or that sort of thing. Like, I know that is a thing. I know people do that. I don't get that. Like, I'm thinking about my mates. Yeah, maybe there are a couple who would do that, but the vast majority would be like, no, that is just ludicrous. And yeah, obviously it's not for me, but it's just a weird thing anyway. Also, is it that hard? Like, go on the stag do, go on the bachelor party, sure, but then just like go to a pub or go to a bar when strippers get involved. That's what I'd do. I just don't really think you'd want to be in that situation anyway. If you've got like a naked woman in front of you who is doing crazy stuff, surely you're thinking in the back of your mind, or like in the front of your mind, like, I've got a girlfriend. Like, she's the only woman that I see naked, and I've just got this random stripper in front of me naked. Doesn't seem very faithful to me. But yeah, I mean, maybe if he's actually questioning this, he might just not be the right person for you anyway, because it's just so dumb. Also, you did just blatantly outline it to him at the start of the relationship, so he can't even say or try and like wrangle his way into making this allowable. But yeah, so weird. Like, if you are a bachelor and you're a fiance, that is just cheating if you go to a strip club or like buy a stripper. And also, it's not as if you're single. Like, this is in the lead up to your wedding. That whole thing is just completely weird to me. Now for our last post of this episode. Shamed for showing affection to my teenage son. I am a 33-year-old father. My spouse and I recently adopted our son in February 2024. He just turned 13 this month. Over the weekend, my son wanted to go to Sky Zone, so we spent father-son time. During my snack break, I sat on a booth. He came over for a break and wanted to lay down on me while he watches YouTube. I stroke his hair. After my son went back to join the other teens for dodgeball, a parent came over to me to tell me that it was inappropriate to show affection to a teenager, especially between two males, in public around younger kids. He also said that I seemed to be a pedo and threatened to call the cops. I explained to him he's my adopted son, so of course we don't look alike. Our skin colours are different. He then proceeded to walk away and grab a staff member. That triggered my anxiety. I grabbed my son and we went home. I cried in the car. I told him the reason and he became upset and comforted me. My son lived in 12 foster families since he was 4 prior to joining mine for life. He witnessed his father kill his mother. His father is serving life in prison. His first foster family were his maternal grandparents. They blamed him for his mum's death. They ended up being arrested for making meth in their basement as his sister reported it. They moved to his paternal grandparents as their second foster. They were physically abused there and blamed the mother for putting their father in jail. As you can see, there is significant trauma and he's never had the opportunity to have love and physical affection from a parent. I'm still anxious and upset about this and need to hear I'm not at fault for wanting to be a good dad that he's never had. Wow. That is just mental. Yeah, we don't need to speak too much about this. First of all, that is just shocking to hear. Secondly, no, obviously you're not wrong at all. Like, as long as your son is chill with it and is like enjoying it. I mean, like, if he wasn't enjoying it, it was like, dad, get off, then yeah, I mean, don't do it. But no. Like, also, doesn't matter what age your son is. or what gender it is, by the way. I mean, that comment is just crazy. Like, if you're an 80-year-old dad and you want to stroke your 60-year-old son's hair, I would say that's slightly more weird, but I mean, you guys do what you want to do. It's not like weird to other people that are there. It's not off-putting or whatever this woman said. What did she say? She said it's inappropriate to show affection to a teenager in public around younger kids. Well, it's not though, is it? So, yeah, do whatever you guys want to do. Like, it's your life. And imagine like actually going over to somebody and saying that. So strange. Obviously, you're not wrong. My husband doesn't want to play my co-worker's wedding. This was originally posted back in January 2023. Our workplace is smallish, with about 50 employees scattered amongst separate departments. A few months ago, I had to speak with a relatively new employee, Jane. She is in a different department than I am, and I rarely have to interact with her. She is a recent college grad, and this is her first job out of college. She normally gives off a friendly vibe, but during my talk with her, she was rather rude and basically insinuated I was stupid with the question I asked. After the interaction, I avoided her, and she has said and done more things in the office that give off entitlement vibes. It's incredibly frustrating. Jane has also recently become engaged and is actively searching for vendors for her wedding. And as karma would have it, my husband has the biggest, most successful wedding band in our state. I help him run the business behind the scenes, but he is the talent and is very well known in our area. I was replying to wedding inquiry emails recently when it just so happens Jane had inquired about pricing. She stated in the email she's seen the band play multiple times and, in her words, needs to have them play for her day to be perfect. I don't think she knows the wedding band and singer she wants is my husband. These emails are addressed to something like name@weddingband.com. We have a pretty common last name. I don't go out to see him play much, and he's only visited me a handful of times at work. My husband knows all the work drama and my frustration with this woman, and he doesn't really want me to have to deal with all of her wedding details behind the scenes. Her wedding date is out far enough that he hasn't booked it yet. He also has a calendar on their website with dates that are open, so clients can clearly see if the date they want is booked or not. My husband suggests asking for an atrocious amount of money so that she will decline herself. I think we should just respond that they won't be a good fit and leave it at that. I want to hear what you would suggest would be professional for myself and my husband. Interesting one. For me, I would just set a price that you would actually be willing to do it for, because no matter who this person is, how annoying she might be, how entitled she comes across at work, and how much you don't want to do this, there is a price, right? Like, say you were like, yeah, we'll do it for $25,000. Then if she says, yeah, you get $25,000. That's what I would do. That is a little bit risky because obviously you do have a general rate, I assume. But also you can be allowed just to say, no, I don't want to do it, and then not give a specific reason. You can just say something as simple as, well, actually, something's come up and there are family commitments, or you don't even have to say that. Just say, sorry, those dates aren't going to work, despite the fact that they were there in your calendar, whatever. So it's an interesting one. I think I would be like, nah, 25K. And if she wants to do it, do it. But what do you think? Comment down below before we get into this update, which came 10 months later. I left it up to my husband about whether to reply to my co-worker, Jane, saying he was available for her wedding. We planned to raise the prices for next wedding season regardless. So after much thought, he responded with a quote, and she accepted. My husband told me to ignore all emails from her and he would handle it himself. I suppose if he's doing that and she doesn't even know you're involved at all and you don't really have to do anything and he's happy to take that on, that's okay if he's willing to do that. Although, given the fact that he's heard so much about her, I'm sure, and how horrible she is from you, I'm surprised he's willing to do this, but let's continue. I cannot even begin to tell you the sighs my husband made any time he opened an email from her. Most of the emails to him were just chit-chat, nothing to do with wedding planning. It was getting to the point where my husband wouldn't even respond to emails unless they had a question that he needed to answer. For some context, most couples book a band about a year out. There's 5 to 10 emails in the initial booking, but then we crack down on the bulk of the stuff we need from them 2 to 3 months before. So over the course of a year, we receive about 40 to 50 emails from one couple. Jane sent my husband 109, yes, I counted, emails between February 2023 until September 2023. So in 6 months, she's sent 109 emails. What on earth? That's like one roughly every other day, if not more. That is insane. Now, that brings us to a few weeks ago. My husband got a call from the father of the groom, the person financing this wedding, who said that my husband's services were no longer needed and forfeited the deposit. My husband, not very sly at all, asked why, thinking maybe the price was the reason. Nope, Jane apparently has been cheating on her fiancé with someone at my work, and the fiancé called it off. I saw Jane at work a few days later, and she seemed fine, even though I now wonder which of our co-workers she has been seeing on the side. Wow, I did not... God, didn't think that story would end like that at all, just not related to your husband, OP, whatsoever. But yeah, fair enough. I suppose it worked out. I'm just a little bit... Well, I was going to say I was slightly interested as to why your husband accepted this work, despite the fact that you've spoken so badly about her. But then again, work is work, and I'm sure he could do a professional job. And the main reason is, you need the money. So it makes sense. But yeah, I would now be, if I was OP, on an absolute mission at work to find out exactly who this woman has been cheating with. That is drama. Okay, now let's get into our second story of today's episode. Now, I told you in the intro, this has a ridiculous title. How about this? Where do I, a 28-year-old man, even begin to inform my 28-year-old wife that I may have caught my younger brother, who is 23, and her younger married sister, who is 25, having sex in my parents' house? A lot going on there. And I think the real crazy thing about this title is not even necessarily that your guys' siblings are having fun. It's that one of them is married. Okay, this was posted in August of 2020. The title really does say it all, but I'll provide the details. I'm at home now and my wife is in the other room on her tablet. Earlier this evening, I drove by my folks' place to drop off some floor tiles I got for my father. He and my mother are celebrating their anniversary and are out of state on vacation. There was like a house party going on the same street, and it forced me to have to park a bit further away than usual due to all the cars, and I don't have access to my folks' garage door opener. So I park in front of a different house and I walk a little ways. I go into the house through one of the side doors to get at the garage. When I get in the house, I'm immediately struck with the sounds of sex. I'm grossed out and confused at first, thinking it's my parents, and they're both in their 60s. That leads me to the next question, which is, would you rather have seen what you're about to go on and see, OP, or your parents making an absolute racket at the age of 60? I actually think there's some beauty in that. I mean, going to town when your combined age is maybe 130 plus. I have to respect that. Anyway, let's carry on. Comment down below, what would you rather find? Before that image can settle, I glass through the door in the house that connects to the garage, and my brother's car is parked there. He doesn't live with my parents. For a second, I'm like, okay, creepy. He took a date back to my folks' place, but I reasoned it's because he has a messy apartment. Not wanting to cause a scene or ruin his fun, I duck out, thinking I'll come back tomorrow. On my way back to my car, I notice that the car parked in front of mine actually belongs to my sister-in-law. Now, I didn't see her in that house, and I have no idea what she sounds like during sex. Such an unnecessary comment, but fine. All I know is that her car was there. My folks moved here later in life, so I'm not super familiar with their neighbours, but there is a chance my sister-in-law was at the house party. She is a married woman with 2 kids. I haven't said anything to the wife yet. Part of me is like, keep your mouth shut and pretend you saw nothing, and the other part knows I ought to tell my wife. What the heck do I do? Okay, so when I first read this title, I presumed that OP 100% had seen his younger brother and his wife's younger sister going at it. But actually, he's not 100% sure. I'm just thinking, is there any way in which what you think has happened didn't actually happen? She's not going to be at that house party. I mean, she might be, but it's a bit of a coincidence, really. The one thing you do know for a fact is that it was your younger brother having sex. Well, I mean, almost definitely was your younger brother having sex with somebody, and your sister-in-law's car is right there. Oh, it's brutal. It's only going one way, this, surely. Let's have a quick look at the comments to see what people are thinking. Somebody said, there's nothing wrong with being honest and telling your wife what you saw. You aren't saying that her sister is cheating, you're literally just giving facts. Yeah, great point. I actually forgot to answer Opie's question, what should he do? And yeah, I think this is a great answer. I heard sex, I saw my brother's car, I saw your sister's car, there was a party going on at a neighbour's house. Your sister could be with my brother or she could be at the party. Opie replied, saying, I've decided to do as someone suggested and drive by my folks tomorrow around the same time and see if the car is there. I'm also going to ask my brother why he's doing sexual things in my folks' house. I'm then going to ask him directly if it was her because her car was there. Based on his answers and how truthful I think he's being, I'll go to my wife about it. There's no sense in embarrassing my brother too much if he just had a random girl at the house. Actually, yeah, thinking about it, that is a sensible thing to do because you wouldn't want to go to your wife with this information without knowing it's legit, and you can work out if it's legit or not before having to go to ask her or tell her what you may or may not have seen by speaking to your brother. And I'm sure by doing this, you will pretty quickly find out if it was your sister-in-law or not. So sensible. Somebody else said, when you're by the house, call your sister-in-law and see what happens. Either that or stay in your car and see who leaves the house. I'm not sure about that. OP said, it's a different day now. If I drive down there and her car is still there, then it's obviously cheating. I mean, that is also something that you will find out anyway when you go and talk to your brother, assuming that he is at your parents' house. He probably isn't there either anymore. It is weird though. Her sister's husband's parents' house. I think that's right, yeah. So she's gone to her sister's husband's parents' house to have sex. That is like so weird and also like really risky as well. I mean, even if it is with OP's younger brother and he's like, yeah, it's cool, don't worry, my parents aren't going to be there. Surely you'd be like, then again, it is cheating. Like, you've got to go somewhere, don't you? Anyway, it's that time. 2 days later, we got this update. Well, I had the day off today and it was still gnawing at me. To catch everybody up, I'd gone by my parents' house yesterday to drop off some floor tiles. My brother, who doesn't live with them, had his car in the garage and there were sounds of 2 people having sex. As not to interrupt and cause embarrassment, I left. My sister-in-law's car was parked on the street, but there was a house party, so she may have been there. I don't think she was, but here we go. Well, today I went to drop off the tiles and neither car was there. I neglected to mention any of this to my wife and decided to just talk to my brother first to see what was going on. As he wasn't there, I figured I'd go pick up a case of beer and drive over to see him. Make up some story about being in the neighborhood. As I'm on the way to do this, I get a call from my wife, who sounds a little distraught. She informs me that she just got off the phone with her sister and that she's apparently getting divorced. My sister-in-law and her husband actually haven't been living in the same apartment for like a week now. Hearing this, I expected her to tell me that my sister-in-law got caught cheating. But it was actually the opposite. The guy I thought I would be helping, well, it turns out he's been having a 6-month-long affair with their kid's former preschool teacher. My sister-in-law had been despairing for a week, having to tell anyone about this because she's ashamed of it. So I breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that if I had stumbled on what I stumbled on, at least there was no real wrongdoing there. I still kept it from my wife and opted to talk to my brother. I would disagree with that, by the way. Just because someone's cheated, I mean, it depends. Actually, no, you know what? I don't disagree with that because I presume they've broken up at this point and they're not trying to fix their marriage. So yeah, fair enough. I suppose it's fair. I'm still not sure about choosing this individual, OP's brother, in OP's parents' house, but fair enough. You know, she's just found out she's been being cheated on for 6 months. Your logic goes out the window there a little bit. Fair enough. I have said fair enough there 55 times. Anyway, I don't usually show up out of the blue, so he was a little anxious that I was there. I told him about me and what I heard, and he apologized profusely. I then asked him about my sister-in-law's car, and he got quiet. Well, it turns out my sister-in-law wasn't telling my wife the whole truth. Apparently, she has known about her husband's affair for several months now, but didn't confront him until just recently. While worrying about who to talk to about all this, she bumped into my brother at a gas station. He told me that she basically broke down crying over it, and for the last few months, he's been letting her confide in him, and he's kept quiet about it. They started meeting up and having coffee together after that, and as my brother has depression, he was recommending a few good therapists. There was never any major flirting in their meetups. They actually talked about their kids. My brother has a daughter from a previous relationship, so he talked about her. My sister-in-law's husband, who didn't know his infidelity had been discovered, began to grow suspicious of my brother and sent him a message asking what's going on with his wife. Why are they suddenly liking each other's posts so much and texting? When my sister-in-law learned of the message, she saw red and finally confronted her husband, and he walked out. That was last week. So that takes us to yesterday. They went out for coffee again. My sister-in-law mentioned being worried about how to tell her folks and her husband's folks about his affair, but said she was feeling much better with him not in the house. She kept giving him signs, talking about her dead bedroom, talking about being lonely, talking about sexual frustrations, and my brother took the bait and took her to my folks' place, and the rest is history. When asked why he chose my folks' place, he said it's because they have a better TV, and he'd left his guitar there and needed to pick it up anyway. I told my wife when I got home, and she turned from being sad and nervous for her sister to quite playful about everything. So it's looking like my kids might have double cousins at some point. Wow, there we go. I don't know if this is the right word to say, but I kind of feel like that's a bit of a wholesome ending. You know, given what's happened to OP's sister-in-law and the fact that she's had to deal with this for so long, yeah, go have your fun. It sounds like her and OP's brother have an actual solid relationship. Yeah, you know, they've had sex now, but in terms of a friendly relationship where OP's brother has really helped his sister-in-law, yeah, go watch TV on a nice TV. That's the bit I don't really get. Why would you go to your parents' house because they have a better TV? Slightly strange, that. Not the best sort of reasoning. But apart from that, yeah, you're being cheated on for 6 months. Like, have your fun. It's your turn. Sort of what I'd say. I mean, to be fair, maybe, and again, it doesn't sound like your brother really had any plans to ever, like, have sex with her. So maybe he genuinely was like, well, yeah, we can go back to my parents' place. I need my guitar anyway. We can watch TV. They got a nice TV. And then he fully realized what was going on, or at least what she was hinting at, and it went from there. So although, like, in isolation, saying there's a better TV sounds stupid, maybe it's an actual reason. There we go. I think, like, it's actually alright. Like, your brother seems like a nice guy, and they had sex after she'd been cheated on for 6 months. I thought this story would be a lot weirder than it is. I think this is actually, like, the most legitimate way that a married person could have sex with their brother-in-law's brother. And all these familial connections, by the way, I'm trying to get them all right, but this is not my fault. Due to what I'm reading and you know, the level of familial incest involved, in a legal way, but still, it's quite challenging. But there we go. Sister-in-law and the bloody Easter. This was our Easter of 2017. Kathy and Jim officially just started dating. They were grossly obnoxious, but that wasn't the worst part. My husband, Tim, has a sister that is 5 years younger. Her name will be Annie in this story. She was engaged to her now husband, Charles. Our kids, Tiger and Olive, were 8 and 4. We lived about 2 hours away from my in-laws, Coral and Gary. My husband's family is deeply religious and consider Easter the most important family event of the year. My husband and I were not married yet, which irked his parents. My mother-in-law is known for making passive-aggressive comments, usually regarding my husband and my lack of faith. Easter started off like any other holiday. We didn't go to the service where my mother-in-law was preaching. We arrived a little before at their house so we could help prepare food and set the table. Lo and behold, Kathy arrived with her best friend Stephanie to grab something she left at their house. 1, I didn't know she had a key. Weird. And 2, she seemed very surprised that we were there. She was so concerned that my husband was in his own parents' house, she called Gary saying she was concerned the front door looked broken. What the heck? So, Gary calls Tim, frantic, asking why the door was broken. We were both really confused as nothing was wrong with the door, and in fact, we used the garage, since the garage is the closest door to get in. Nothing was wrong with the door, she just wanted to stir stuff. Everyone arrived an hour later. My in-laws were really concerned about the door, but as I said, nothing was wrong with it. Kathy just played it off that it looked off to her, and how sorry she was that she caused a big deal over nothing. As I said, Easter is a big deal for his family, so there were at least 5 sides. My father-in-law's mashed potatoes, yum, sweet potato pie, corn, glazed carrots and stuffing. Then there was turkey and chicken. There were lots of desserts as well. Everyone was just happy to eat a good meal and be together. However, in their house, my mother-in-law always gets her plate first after my father-in-law prays. During the prayer, Kathy starts grabbing sides. Jim told her quietly, "Please, don't. My mum goes first. Can't you wait until the prayer's over?" She then huffed out, "Fine." So by the end of the prayer, her plate is full of just sides. Anything that was in reach, she grabbed. So then she starts eating when my mother-in-law is getting her food. Now, there's not enough food for everyone. Even Charles said, "Hey, not cool." Everyone got 1/3 of their regular amount of food. How many sides did Kathy have? My mother-in-law pulled her aside later and said that she needed to learn more self-control and she owed everyone an apology. She never did. Alright guys, I'm going to be honest, I'm not exactly sure who Kathy is in relation to everyone here, but OP is with her husband, Tim, at Tim's parents' house. He has a younger sister called Annie, who is engaged to her now husband, Charles. Coral and Gary are the parents, and Kathy's brought along her best friend, Stephanie. So maybe Jim is Tim's brother? I think. But it's not been strictly said, but I'm going to assume that's the case until I find out something different. Anyway, then Annie, Tim's younger sister, always does an Easter egg hunt for the kids. Her boyfriend Charles helped this year and was super excited to see the kids find the spots. However, Kathy and her female dog friend Stephanie went around when they were there earlier and took all of the easy spots. When the kids went out to find the eggs, Annie and Charles were so confused. Kathy giggled and said she took a few. No, she took them all from the front because they were close, and she was hungry from seeing us prepare the food. According to Annie and Charles, there were close to 30 eggs that she ate. So I said, then she can find the ones that were too high. She huffed and went with Olive and Jim, while me and Annie took Tiger. My husband went to reassure Gary that once again the door was fine. Coral stayed inside cleaning. Charles tried to frantically find more eggs to hide inside the house. Not even 3 minutes later, Olive screams in pain. A high-pitched scream. Her knees are bloody and so are her hands. Kathy put her in the tree to grab the eggs and didn't see her fall. What the heck? We ended up in urgent care. Thankfully, nothing was broken though. Kathy ended up saying how she tried to say to me that she was afraid of heights and Olive saw an egg in a tree, and Kathy, being dumb, didn't keep a hand on her when she placed her in the tree. So Olive, who remember is 4 years old, right, fell 3 to 4 feet, which OP is saying isn't a lot, but she's 4, right? That's still like, it's not nothing. And Kathy let my kid fall from a tree. I said to her face that she was an idiot and you don't put a small child in a tree by herself, and that her fat butt could have left the eggs that Annie and Charles hid for the kids. She just babbled that no one understands her and she was hungry. Tim and I grabbed the kids, and that was the last Easter we spent at my in-laws. Looking back, I should not have left her alone with my kid, but I thought that Jim would be smart enough to watch her. Wow. Okay, so pretty sure that I was right and that Kathy is Tim's brother's, well, future wife in this story. I mean, the real question is, why has your husband's brother married somebody like this who would go off and just completely ruin an Easter egg hunt, which, by the way, has always been for kids? I mean, adults can get involved as well, I suppose, but like, I went to my family's house for Easter Sunday. It was really nice. There was no Easter egg hunt because we're all not kids. So like, Easter egg hunts are obviously for children. I don't know how old Kathy is, but I mean, she's dating Jim, and you guys have kids that are 8 and 4, so I can't imagine she's that young. I mean, she could be like 18, I suppose. We don't actually know. It's not necessarily said, but she's not like 14, is she? Like, we can tell she's an adult from how this story has been written and how OP has described her. Like, what on earth is she doing? Also, it is weird that she has a key. I mean, it's not weird that her future husband, Jim, has a key to his parents' house. I mean, I have a key to my parents' house. It's weird that she would take the key, though, and enter. That's the way it sounded as well. And also bringing her best friend as well. Like, that's also weird. I don't know. She's just weird, right? She's got no respect for anyone, and she's just left a 4-year-old sitting alone in a tree. Great person. So anyway, guys, let me know in the comments down below, how was your Easter compared to this one? A very good title, I think, there. Sister-in-law and the Bloody Easter. Hopefully no children were harmed at your respective Easter celebrations, but if they were, comment down below what happened, and was Kathy involved? Right, now for our next Entitled People story. This one, unlike the previous one, which was written 9 years ago, was actually live at the time of writing and was posted on Reddit just 2 days ago at the time of recording. The title is, bully on plane I'm currently on. So this is being written using plain Wi-Fi or, Starlink or whatever, and it's live. And we can see how this unfolds as OP is writing it, which is very rare, actually. I can't remember many stories where people are writing them and posting them on Reddit as it's actually happening to them. I am a 43-year-old woman, and I'm an anxious flyer. Not due to fear of flying, but fear of people. So I'm pretty happy with how I'm handling this situation that's happening right now. I'm flying back from a vacation in Costa Rica. I paid extra for priority and an exit row seat. The flight was supposedly full, but somehow the middle seat next to me, I'm in an aisle seat, is empty. It's a 4-hour flight, so not having to rub shoulders with a stranger is a welcome surprise. I get all settled in. My electronics are charging, I've got stuff in the seat back, Wi-Fi connected, and then I order some food and drinks from the flight attendant. Having an extra tray table between me and the window seat passenger is also quite helpful. Just as I'm starting my snacks and mix my drink, the guy across the aisle from me, a man in his 50s, asks if the middle seat is empty. I have to take off my headphones and then respond, "Yup," and I put my headphones back on. A couple of minutes later, he starts talking at me again, so I remove my headphones again. He says, "Hey, switch seats with me so that my wife in the back of the plane can come up and sit next to me in that empty middle seat." I say, "Well, I'm all settled in right now and I don't really want to move while eating, but if you wait," he interrupts me to say it'll be really easy to switch all of our stuff, and I again start to say that I will switch when I'm done eating. But he doesn't even listen to me. He just talks over me, saying things like, "Unbelievable. So I can't sit next to my wife because you won't just do a simple thing like switch one aisle seat for another? So ridiculous. How unbelievably rude." There's so much wrong with this, by the way. First of all, I assume that there is somebody in his middle seat or someone sitting next to him. Otherwise, his wife could just go and sit next to him there. So it's not as simple as just switching one seat for another, because you have, in effect, OP, 1.5 seats, which is obviously huge. I mean, if you're on a flight, doesn't even matter if it's short haul or long haul, and the middle seat is vacant and people are coming on, and you're thinking to yourself, please, grace me. This is going to be so good if no one sits there. The difference between if someone sits there and someone doesn't, right? It's a huge difference. So the fact that this guy hasn't realized that, I mean, he has realized it, but the fact that he's not understanding that is really stupid. And then secondly, if you want to sit next to your wife, book seats together. It's not that hard. I mean, genuinely, respect for OP for even entertaining this. I feel like I'd be inclined to do it, but I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to give up 1.5 seats for one seat. No way. Anyway, I kept trying to tell him to just wait a few minutes, but now he's annoying me. He never asked, he never said please, and immediately just started talking loudly and gesturing around to everyone, telling them how unbelievable I am. I realize now that I phrased his statement as a question when he said, "Let's switch seats." He said, "Hey, switch seats with me." He didn't actually question it at all. He didn't say, "Please can we?" He just said, "Switch seats." So then he finally takes a breath and says, "Well, how about after you finish eating, then you'll switch?" To which I say, "As I was telling you, I'd be fine switching after I eat, but not after you've been so rude. Now, I'm not going to switch with you at all. Well done, you." Of course, this makes him incensed. He continues to bluster and bloviate about how I'm so unbelievable and keeping him from his poor wife that is sitting with strangers. How dare I? Then he again tries to talk to the man next to him about how evil I am, and just starts leaning across the aisle and glaring right at me, 18 inches away from my face. That's horrible. That's just disgusting. For audio listeners, I'm holding up 2 hands to 18 inches. Not fun at all. At some point, he mumbles under his breath, and I think he said female dog, but it was hard to hear as I put my headphones back on and just ignored him. For the next hour, he continued to glare and yell back to his wife that I was preventing them from sitting together. So I just completely ignored him, and I text my friends, laughing and smiling a lot, just annoying him more, but not doing anything wrong or engaging him in any way. We're about an hour from landing at this point when OP is writing this, and he seems to have given up and is just leaning back and not staring at me anymore. I have a feeling he's going to say something when we're disembarking, either to me or the people around us, about how unbelievable and ridiculous I am. My plan is just to half smile wryly and say, "Okay, I'm going to try my best to not take the bait and get in an argument because there isn't any point with people like this, but I know it will be hard for me. Any advice? Also, let me know what you would say in a situation like this. Damn, it's annoying that like I'm not reading this live, as in like when it was just posted. Because if you were on Reddit at the time this was posted, you could actually like influence a real life entitled people situation. What a privilege. If this guy was capable of listening, I would tell him it's his own fault for not upgrading his wife's seat and getting seats next to each other before the flight. I also want to reiterate that I would have switched even though I didn't want to until he became so rude and entitled. But I doubt it would make a difference, so I'm just not going to give any reaction instead. Thanks for reading. I'm trying to buck up before the plane lands. I hate being in situations like this, but I hate giving in to bullies even more. Should I have a quick look at what the comments said? Just to see if any of the info was good. I'm inclined to have a look. Somebody said, keep your headphones on and just ignore him. Nothing will enrage him more than you just being completely unbothered by the incident and having enjoyed an empty seat next to you the entire flight, not paying a single thought to him and his little tantrum at all. I would agree with that. I think that is the thing to do, especially given the fact that you said you don't like confrontation. If it was me though, I would be really tempted to get into an actual argument with him. I know that sounds bad, but I just would. I'd be like, what are you... I just have to say, like, what are you actually complaining about? You are an idiot. And I know, I can see the comments. You guys are saying, no, that's what he wants. Which is right. But also, maybe it would take someone actually standing up to him and being like, you are just so wrong here. Like, what on earth are you doing? If you want to sit next to your wife, buy 2 seats together, leave me alone. I don't know you. Stop being 18 inches from my face, to get him to actually not do it the next time. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like this is not the first time this guy's done this. And he probably has done this in the past, not paid for 2 seats next to each other, and then bullied someone else into getting them to change seats with him or his wife or whatever so they can sit together. So this has to stop at some point. That's what I'm thinking. But yeah, let me know in the comments down below. First of all, what advice would you give to OP if you were commenting live on Reddit as this was happening? And secondly, what would you do in this situation? Entitled woman thinks she can ignore rules in a work zone. Hey everyone, I didn't sleep very well because of an incident at work yesterday. Thankfully, it's raining and I won't be working today, but I needed to vent. So, our cast of characters is as follows. I am a 26-year-old non-binary, but I'm not out to my co-workers, so they will refer to me as she throughout the story. We have an entitled driver, who is a woman in her 50s, an entitled passenger, a 20-year-old woman, I think probably her daughter, a state trooper, a man in his 40s, and my co-workers, Vicky in her late 40s, our team leader, Florence in her late 50s, Teresa in her mid-50s, Ben, late 40s, and Carol, late 40s. I am a flagger. You know when there's road construction and there's someone out there holding a stop sign? That's me. We are a traffic control company, and we're one of the best in the state at what we do. It's gotten to the point that one contractor has even told us they refuse to work on the road if we or one other traffic company is not with them. I tell you this so that you know that what is about to occur was not due to any fault of me or my co-workers. It was purely on the entitled driver's ignorance. The job I'm currently assigned to is a long-term job with multiple parts on a major 2-lane highway. It's 55 miles per hour, but most people are used to doing 70. We have to be at company HQ at 5:30, drive an hour to get to the job site, work for however long the contractor wants us to, drive back to HQ, and then go home. All in all, it's a 12 to 14 hour day. We go straight to bed, get up, and we do it all again. We're all tired and we have no patience for dumb drivers. At the current step of this job, we have split into 2 teams and have 2 sites on the same road separated by a mile. So the drivers have no patience for us either. Due to some previous bad behavior from drivers, we have a state trooper assigned to assist us. He sits in a parking lot in between our zones and has one of our radios so we can reach him quickly. Now, before I get into the story proper, I want you to know what to do when you come across a flagging operation so you don't end up making a butt of yourself like the entitled driver of this story. 1. Your first warning sign will be actual signs. In extreme situations, you might only see 2. The first is road work ahead. I sure hope it does. Self-explanatory. Some companies might use variations like utility work or road construction, but they all mean the same thing. The second is a picture of a person holding a flag. This sign is telling you that there is someone ahead controlling traffic. Due to the nature of this job, and because we had enough space to do so, we had 5 signs placed in the lead up to our zone. In between the 2 mentioned, we also had one that said reduce speed and 1 lane road ahead, and at the end we placed a second flagger picture, just in case people missed the first one. But as a driver, all of these signs should tell you one thing: slow the F down. It's a good rule of thumb to do half the speed limit, apparently. Okay. Number 2, when you see a flagger, stop while still giving them plenty of space. If you see a cone several feet in front of the flagger, stop at the cone. I'm getting the idea that we're sort of foreshadowing what I'm about to read. Because, yes, stopping at a cone is pretty obvious. If there is an intersection between you and the flagger, stop before the intersection. If neither of these visual cues exist, give yourself enough space that if you were rear-ended, you wouldn't hit the flagger. In my case, both visual cues were present. A cone was placed on the other side of the intersection where I wanted people to stop. And 3, if you see several cars stopped in front of you, do not attempt to go around them. Again, I feel like we're foreshadowing here. They are stopped for a reason. You are risking a head-on collision. Stop behind the person in front of you and wait your turn. If you are truly in such a hurry that you cannot wait for traffic to move, make a U-turn if safe to do so and find another route to your destination. My job is to get you from point A to point B safely, not to get you there in a timely manner. So, with those ground rules established, on with the story. Our zone was about a half-mile long with 2 intersections. Yesterday, I was stationed at the south end of the north zone. This meant that I had the wonderful job of stopping people that had just went through the south zone before I could send them through my zone. I was also placed so that I could control one of the intersections in addition to the main road. The other intersection was a little ways down from the opposite end, so Ben was watching this intersection and letting people know when it was safe to go. Carol and Florence took turns flagging the opposite end of the main road, and I did the same with Teresa. And Vicky stayed near the contractor's crew in case they needed us to stop traffic for any reason. I drew over Google Maps for a visual guide of where we were placed in case my description is unclear. Let's have a look at this. Okay, so we've got a road, very straight road. At the bottom, we have OP and Teresa. Then we have a bit further up, Vicky. Then we have Ben at an intersection further up. And then at the top, we have C and F, Carol and Florence. I mean, looks pretty standard to me. If you're listening on podcast platform, you're not missing too much. It's pretty much what you'd expect. My last batch of cars was almost to the other end, and it was then Carol's turn to send traffic. I already had a line of about 6 cars with more approaching, but all these vehicles were well behaved. My first car stopped at the cone. The second car was Florence returning to her position after a bathroom break with her truck's amber lights on. The fourth car was a semi with its hazards on. I wasn't worried. Until I saw a blue SUV pull out from behind the semi and start passing my stopped traffic. I moved closer to the middle of the road in hopes of getting her attention and mouthed to the driver, "What the F are you doing?" The following shouting match ensued. "I didn't know! Nobody can see you. You should be behind the semi," the entitled driver said. "I'm where I need to be. You shouldn't be pulling around stop traffic on the frickin' highway. There were signs telling you I was here." Then the passenger got involved. "There weren't any signs. There was no warning." "Yeah, no one can see you back there. Move behind the semi so people can see you." There were 5 frickin' signs. Not to mention the 6 cars stopped in front of you. Have some frickin' common sense, lady. I assume Florence either heard the argument or saw me getting upset, since I heard her voice over the radio. "Do you need help?" "Yes," I replied. Teresa got out of her truck at this point and started walking towards me. She was about 400 feet behind me. Florence got out of her truck as well and approached the entitled driver's window. "Hey, I saw what you did," Florence said. "That was insanely illegal. You could get 6 different tickets for that. We had plenty of warning. She's standing there for a reason. Don't tell her how to do her job." At this point, the entitled passenger said something to Florence that I couldn't hear, and she didn't want to repeat when I asked her about it later. I just heard her shout, "Oh my God," and start walking back to her truck. The entitled passenger got out and started following Florence and recording her. Oh great. Florence informed her that all of our company trucks had dash cams and not to do anything stupid. At this point, Carol's traffic had already passed me, and Ben came over the radio asking me what was taking me so long to return. Florence replied to him, "There's a lady that tried to run OP's paddle and is still causing problems. Nobody sent any traffic. Vicky, can you get the trooper down here? The vehicle is a blue make and model, license plate number X. Teresa approached the entitled driver and instructed her to pull off onto the side road next to me and park. She was arguing, so Teresa had to repeat herself several times. The driver then tried to go around her and ended up coming straight at me and stopped with her front bumper just a few inches from my knees. I backed up a few feet and she did it again. Now, there are two things you need to know about Teresa. First, she used to work in private security. She was trained by local police and military members for that role. She is an intimidating lady and she yells like a drill sergeant. Second is that we are blood related. And seeing a car move towards me in such a threatening way awakened a fury in her that I've never seen before. Like a mother bear defending her cub, she screamed in the driver's face, "Pull onto the side street and frickin' park!" The driver was sufficiently scared into complying, and the state trooper pulled up shortly afterwards. After talking to the driver briefly, the state trooper approached me to hear my description of events. I told him that she pulled around stop traffic in an attempt to get through, and that she was acting aggressively. He replied, "That's what I thought. Okay, I'll take care of it." I thanked him, and Teresa told me to take my break and calm down. From the rearview mirror of the truck, I could see the entitled driver and the state trooper, but I couldn't hear anything. The trooper berated the driver for several minutes, and her face turned visibly red. Soon after, I saw her swiftly leaving, and the trooper was talking to Teresa before he returned to his position. The rest of this story I got secondhand from Teresa. Apparently, the trooper had screamed at the driver for 5 minutes straight, not letting her get a word in edgeways. When he was done, the driver admitted that she wasn't paying attention. She made a mistake and doubled down to try and deflect her own fault onto me. The trooper said he would make a record of it, but he was letting her go without a ticket. I was annoyed. My entire crew was annoyed on my behalf, but we moved on with our day. That's a shame, to be honest. Like, great story, but the lack of ticket there is like a sour end, because as Teresa or Florence, whoever it was, said earlier, this woman could have got 6 separate tickets, and what she did was highly illegal. So for the trooper to just not really be bothered to do any paperwork, because that's what's happened here, and just let her go when she's broken the law in multiple ways and was like threatening to run over somebody, that's just poor. So sadly, not the most satisfying end to this story, but suppose that's real life and that can happen. But there we go. Great story nonetheless. I felt like a lot of background there to get to the actual entitlement part, but I would like to thank OP for doing that diagram on Google Maps and really setting the scene, because it does help sometimes when I have like a full picture in my mind. I know the road is straight. I know there's intersections and I can tell where all of OP's colleagues are. And yeah, you get more of a visual idea of what was happening. So I suppose in this situation, it was well worth it. Thank you very much, guys, for listening and watching. As always, let me know your thoughts on these 3 stories down below. If you want more right away, check out this episode on screen. Subscribe if you are new on whatever platform you are on, whether that's subscribe on YouTube or follow on Spotify or Apple or whatever. And I'll catch you on the next one.